You know I got company, you know I got company. You know I got company. If you don't know, you will know that I got company. Welcome, welcome, welcome to this special marching event. We're gonna go east, west, and north and south and go around about it. Oh, gonna let the workers finish their business there. Gonna go around about. Salutation to those who pick up the garbage, the recycling. Gonna let them, of course, finish their work. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Gonna cross on the other side and go over that workout training and gotta salute, please, NFL, NHL, NBA, MLB. Give them a little bit of that love and reduce the costs. Public workers of North America. Let's get that N.A.C.W.P. Gotta reduce the cost. That is something which we're gonna reduce with that, and that is something which we're gonna get. And gotta get a little bit of that rock and roll. They're athletes, eh? Thank you, thank you, thank you. Keeping the streets clean. Let's get the N.A.C.W.P. North American Collective Workers Party. Big rock and roll, big hugs for those who pick up the trash, the garbage. Thank you, thank you. My call is for a mass public-private partnership, and we gotta appreciate, the work, the labor being done there. And that's work, 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 work. And I always gotta salute and call on the NFL, National Football League, NHL, National Hockey League, NBA, National Basketball Association, MLB, to please reduce the ticket costs and also give them some tickets. Millionaires, billionaires, finance the public workers who pick up the recycling, the garbage, the compost. All the sanitation workers like those workers over there. Finance them some massage therapy sessions because they deserve it and earn it more than yours truly. And I was just moody a bit, actually, for like a few hours, but now that I'm out, I feel much better. I see a little bit of that sunset, and it's hot. It's like 25. I did my laundry, so I gotta be grateful for that. I was just moody, I was like craving a massage therapy session. I went out for a workout yesterday. Usually I don't go out Sundays because today is Monday, 29th of September. So usually I don't go on those days, but of course I did yesterday. I did more than 4 hours. So of course that is just something which I gotta be protruded on. But I was moody, I was just craving a massage, or a hug. But you hug and you massage with consent for yours truly, You hug and massage. I'm gonna check how much they are. The gas is 159, so it went up again, eh? The gas went up again, 159. And thank you to the public workers again, who pick up the garbage, the recycling. And we're going to my second home because yesterday we went by the river, by the water. Now we're gonna go to that Monday to the mountain, I feel much better, I'm no longer depressed and suicidal. It's been a long time, I've been depressed and suicidal for a few years, and crossing Canada in 2017, that got me out of being depressed and suicidal. And that's when I had a revelation. I established a strong esprit de corps, with my fellow Canadians. And thank you, for picking up the garbage and keeping the sanitation streets. And now we got a lot of strikes here. It's a strike day, so this is a special for the workers. Special dedicated also to my fellow neurodivergent aspies. And I'm part of the LGBTQ community, androgynous, pansexual, aspie, artist, athlete. And if you're 18 plus, you want to be a friend with benefits, we can rock and roll with that, Friends with benefits, don't waste my time, I won't waste yours, or pledge your allegiance. Our family, it's just nothing about it, And yeah, I can't afford a massage therapy session. I wish I would, but they deserve it more than me, man. It's our problems as Aspies, as myself as an individual suffering with Asperger's, also known as HFA. It's not a disease. It's a neurological mental divergent condition, and there's a very high unemployment in my community. It stands at 80%, so it's very high. So once again, salutation, public workers, fellow Aspies, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the truckers, my anonymous friend. This march is always for yours truly, and hasn't been easy, for yours truly to. It's been many years for me to accept my neurodivergence, and just in the past years to work as on those characteristics and traits with which I have to live with, and I have to build bridges with my fellow neurotypicals, because sometimes there's a lot of misunderstandings about what Asperger's is, HFA. And it's basically on the spectrum of autism, so sometimes it's more difficult to fully build those bridges, and can be misunderstandings arising, and how we see the world. Our brain processes information differently, So even now when I see the cards and kind of mathematics in terms of the relation with the economic financial matters of the growing cost of living, and the fact that I just saw that the price of gas went up again. by 2 cents, and by 2 cents double, so 4 cents. It was 154 the other day, 4 days ago. 154, now it's 159, right? So by, well, I should do cents by 4 cents. Yeah, it was 154 by 5 cents. By 5 cents, but the point, was it 0.9 or 150? Yeah, and it went up and down. So it goes up and down, and usually last month it was an average of about 160, 63, yeah, and look at that. I guess enough. Gotta focus on that Halloween, that's nice. I gotta love it. Spiders, the children are gonna be happy, and you got some bats there. So it's always fun, you know, to see Halloween decorations. And my fellow auntie there with the Halloween, so I got a big spider, and I love it, and that's what it is with that, man. That's super cool. And here we got some flowers, you know, and here we got some flowers, and gotta give a little bit of salutation for the public workers. Thank you for embellishing the city. It's a public works, and those ones are nice too, but I like both. I like both flowers actually. Those are a bit more colorful, and those yellow ones there, those yellow flowers are just incredible. On the other side there, see? All those, I'm gonna cross there to see. Although we can come, of course, on the other side with that, and that is just something when you gotta be doing. So that is here, you see? Look, I love those yellow flowers there, and I love yellow flowers, and these little ones, of course, are also really cute. But those ones in the back, every time I pass by here, I just get that double trouble, quadrupling my smile, you know. Red is my favorite color as I'm wearing it, you know, the backpack and the shirt and the cap, and the fourth is my hat, red, backpack's red, and is red. The holder of the protection of my work tool, the smartphone. So grateful, thankful, my rent's paid, electricity bill's paid. I think tomorrow I'm gonna be able to pay some dollars for the phone, you know, because I gotta be making some payment, because that's just how we gotta roll with it. So I think I'm gonna be able to make a minimum payment tomorrow. And my only stress now is financial. Of course, subconsciously, maybe that's why I was moody, you know. So that moodiness is, of course, something which we gotta be drilling. So, of course, that moodiness is, of course, something which I have because of a financial stress, you know. And my rent's paid, electricity bills paid, but that financial stress is, of course, pressing, you know, because it adds to the stresses, you know. And I'm not the only one. There's many who are in a financially stressful situation. Just want to go see how that one goes in the corner there in my neighborhood, you know. So that is something which I gotta be checking now. Wow, quite a cutie, see? Hey, what do you say? Gotta love it. Oh yeah, yellow, so cool. It's just right on my whole march to the mountain, you know. It's just exquisite, and getting a little bit on that culturally with that, and that's what we got, and that's what we gotta get doing with that. And that's just, here we got a little bit. I wish I could put a little bit out more with that, and a little bit more food here. I wish I could contribute so much more than I do contribute now, because it's always something which is fun. And this one last time has been a bit good, so I'm gonna take one for me, one for my friend, one and one. And that's what it is, one. And I'm gonna take for me and my friend here a little bit of that. And that's what we're gonna put it on now, and we're gonna get it on now to be. We're gonna be on our go, see. And of course, that is something which we have to be doing on that. Something which we gotta be circumstantial about, and preferential, of course, about all the communication where we are to be. You know, all the situational awareness. You gotta put it now, you know, see. Hey, look at that. This is it. There we go. So now I got that donation, and gonna put this on the side, you know. Put this on the go here. See, look at that. So now I got some food there. See, I got some food, and that's what it is with that, and that's where we go, you know. So something which it is, you know. So, yeah, oh my god. Turn around, you know. Thank you. So grateful, you know. Ah, yeah, now I got the backpack even more and beautiful flowers there. Look at those. Those are so beautiful. And that's what we have to do now, you know, for the constant things where we are now, you know, to get that dimensions. But, ah, yeah, now I got some pounds on it. I think it's more than 44, and I'm not sure exactly. So I left ones for somebody else. I took one for me, one for my friend, because I guess if it's rice, if it's well made. And last time, somebody is putting, the fourth time that I put those bags in, about 4 weeks ago. Oh yeah, now definitely the backpack is about 4 weeks ago. Somebody had put somebody had put that same bag but different type of food, and you know, to be honest, I liked all of them, so now I'm just gonna give one to my friend and one for me, one for my friend I took, and that's a little bit of that rock and roll. Thank you for contributing to my food security. You alleviated a little bit of that stress, you know, in a practical manner, contributing to my food security, which is, of course, you got to get that money, get that paper, get that money, get that paper. Buy, sell is something which is fundamental to our integral, of course, of the economical plateau, which we have now to be, of course, in all the awareness that food security and eating, you know, everybody got to eat, Wall Street? Everybody got to eat, Wall Street? It ain't all about Wall Street. Farmers, butchers, bakers, truckers, nurses, electricians, and the plumbers and the doctors. We're on strike here. Gotta check. Yeah, I got those red gloves in the backpack, you know. I'm challenging Donald Trump since 2018 to a boxing match for the complex, always for the 63. Loving me some of those yellow flowers there. It always brings a little bit of joy. And also these ones here, you know. And those bigger ones. I love yellow flowers, although red is my favorite. And we gotta get it on that drill, the dynamics, you know, to be on that circumstantial position where we are now, you know, to get, look at these. These are just so beautiful, you know, and these are so beautiful. I gotta check a little bit of that beautiful flowers here. And they have a scent, but they're not that scented, you know. They're not that scented, to be honest, but they have a scent, right? They have a scent, but they're not that scented. They're kind of slight. And please don't try not to put stuff here, you know. Like, don't leave stuff. I understand you got some candy. It's good. I'm gonna have to disinfect my hands actually now, so we're gonna do that. I touched the fridge, you know, there. So I don't know, you know, the handles, you know how it is, you know, with the handles of the fridge, and gonna cross to check it on the other side. A little bit of Halloween. I check a little bit of this, so flowers here on the side, and that's just what we're gonna get doing with that. And see, look, gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous yellow flowers as I go to the mountain, and that's where I want to cross to check that out as we go now to the mountain, my second home. And turn your heads left and right before you cross the street, you know. Turn your heads left and right before you cross the street always. And that's quite a beautiful, wow, what a beauty. Isn't it just gorgeous? I love the colors. I think it's a theme from something, eh? Oh, is it a theme from a video game, Mario Bros, right? Mario, maybe, you tell me. But it's kind of cool. Wow, really good job. The kids are gonna love it. That's what's most important. And please, millionaires, just try to reduce before Halloween the candies. You know, now, you know, the candies are more expensive than people can afford because they spend more on gas, on rent, on other important food items. So please, millionaires, I wish I would have been a millionaire. I would have just definitely financed the joy of children. So I'm just gonna disinfect my hands because, you know, I pulled on the handle of the fridge. So as I pulled on the handle of the fridge, I'm gonna use this little antiseptic hand sanitizer here to just disinfect my hands, you know, because you never know and how many people touched it, you know, before and yesterday when it was last time when it was cleaned, you know. So I'm just gonna disinfect my hands, put a little bit of hand sanitizer and just rub, you know, rub my hands. Rub, R-U-B, rub my hands for like 10 seconds, 15, add 4 more, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's it, you know. That's hands are clean now, sanitized, because we got bacteria, germs, and microbes, you know, so either that or gloves, you know. And I try to keep the protocols of COVID as much as I can, you know. The protocols of COVID are super important. Keeping the protocols, maintaining the protocols of COVID are super important to maintain, and gotta give a salutation to the public workers. Gonna let them traverse and watch it. Take your 3 steps back, 3 steps forward, and look right and left, and gonna wait until they cross. Give them priority. They're gonna turn and gonna sing a little bit of that rock and roll. I see blurred, but I see a number 66 on it. I guess that's one of the contingency of the trucks on it. So really nice. Thank you, public workers and construction workers, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the firefighters, those in the daycares who change some diapers, those in the daycares who change some diapers, those in the daycares who change some diapers. Gotta salute also the daycare workers who change some diapers. And here we're gonna take it on the right side here. Pass a little bit to see that yellow little flowers there, bouquet. It's a bouquet. It's not a bouquet really. It's like a pot, but kind of seems like it could be ready to go as a bouquet, eh? But quite cute, eh? That little flowers in the corner there. 1, 2, 3, 4, like kind of different as the 5th one. So I love that how it's just prepositions, you know, prepositions there. And here we got, you know, a little bit of buildings and roundabout children playing safely, and they're innocent, you know, their joy and innocence and their safety is important, you know. So here we go as we go to the mountain, and less moody now. I was just moody, and for a long time, you know, I was depressed, suicidal, and there we go, little squirrel. And I got a lot of squirrels here. They survive, they thrive here in the midst of the urban civilizational jungle here. Urban concrete jungle in Montreal, aka Hawk Island, my city home, island in this life and in another life. And I was thinking the other day, you know, I think it's been, I think I haven't left the island in more than 6-7 years. I gotta double check, but if not, because I said 8 years, because 8 years ago I crossed Canada with my anonymous friend. We went to Vancouver, BC. We went to Vancouver, BC by bus. From Montreal to Vancouver, BC was 3.5 days by bus. 3.5 days. So that was a hell of a trip. Turn your heads left and right before you cross the street. Gotta speed up a little bit because you know you got that velocity, and in my head sometimes there's calculations relating to velocity, meaning the speed and the distance of the vehicle and the preposition of the intersection of the other adjacent or in the line of sight direction of two objects, right? When two objects are a moving or a movable object, one that's in motion or one that's in motion. I'm not going to go into the mathematics of my ASP weird distance mathematics calculations, but yeah, ASP sometimes can be weird, awkward, and strange like that. And look at these beautiful red, aren't they just cute? Kind of cute little red apples. They grow, no, they do not grow bigger than that size, but they grow to that size. And here you got some more beautiful flowers. And here I want to pass by the garden there because it's so gorgeous and it's still visible during the day. So that's why I wanted to pass by that side. So what I was saying is, of course, that in 2017 summer, I crossed Canada coast to coast. In August, I went to BC with my anonymous friend, BC, British Columbia. And of course, I went to Halifax, Nova Scotia afterwards. I went to Nova Scotia afterwards with my anonymous friend in Halifax. And it was a 25 hours and 44 minutes ride by train ride. 25 hours and 44 minutes. 25 hours and 44 minutes, 25 hours. Just from Montreal to Halifax. 25 hours and 44 minutes. That was what it was. It's a nice garden here. I really like the flowers. Look at this. This is really nice here. This one and this one also. All these are actually really nice. All of these are beautiful here. Just in the corner, you got yellow. See? You got yellow. And then you got these ones here, the taller ones. And then you got the lemon yellow here, which are really, really Gorgeous, see, look at that, man. See? Isn't that just gorgeous there? Look at that. Wow, that's really nice. That one, it's like, that's big. It's really huge. Wow. These ones also. These ones I really like also. See the white and the red? This one's super nice. This one's super nice here. Yeah, these ones are really, really nice and lovely. And that's why I love passing by here. Even now it's autumn, but look at those, man. These are really nice also. And they're so flashy. These ones also, they have a white, they're like yellow and whitish. Really gorgeous how it's all aligned here on the side. See, just beautiful. So many colors. Really nice. But you don't pick them, you know, because they're not to be picked, you know. They're for people there, you know, you can pick them. And these ones also. This yellow one here. You can smell it a bit. Yeah, it doesn't smell that good. That one has a more like rough scent, you know. It smells like rough, kind of rough scented. But the beauty of it is really nice. So yeah, you got nice gardens, and you know, you got big metropolises, and you got skyscrapers, and you got a big island of Montreal, and you got me, an individual sovereign N.A.C.W.P who hasn't left the island for at least going on to like 7 years now. 7 years, maybe even more than 8. Now it's going maybe even 8, but 8 because it would be 8 because I celebrated in August and September when I crossed Canada coast to coast with my anonymous friends. So it would be 8. So that means 8 or a little bit plus now, or 7 plus years for sure since before COVID. So for sure for more than 6 years that I didn't even leave from the island of Montreal. So I have been staying just on the island proper for many years. But I guess the affordability, you know, my financial struggle has been really economic, and besides that, I'm really joyous, active. You know, I lead a very active lifestyle on a daily basis, and you know, now I'm joyous. I was just moody and stressed, and you know, I don't want anybody to feel sorry or anything like that. That's not how N.A.C.W.P is. Of course, myself as an individual, N.A.C.W.P is. I mean, if you want to be friends with benefits or pledge your allegiance, support the work, my dream, the dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom, that's even better. But besides that, I don't want to waste your time, don't waste mine, you know, and friends with benefits only, you know. I'm androgynous, pansexual, being that I'm 50-50, many incarnations, many past lives. Sometimes was born a man, a woman, man, a woman, a woman, man, a woman, a man, a woman, a man, a woman, a man. And now you get that 50-50 androgynous. And I was born in the United States 3 times, post 70-76, once as a woman, post 70-76, twice as a man. Those 3rd times that I was born as a man, of course. Those same times when I was born as a man. Look at this. Gorgeous, 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 beautiful. These ones also. At the same time when I was born as a man, twice, post 70-76 in the USA, I served in the same United States Armed Forces in 2 different wars. 2 different wars. Same United States Armed Forces, and tomorrow is of course, the meeting, the famous meeting, kind of unusual, bizarre, and calling all December 24th, NATO leaders of NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization member states, public and private, to meet me for the discussions of my theories, protocols, as I am a philosopher, artist, athlete, and geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist who has some of the solutions for the North American collective. Canada, United States, always for the 63, the 10, the 50, and the 3, always for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the truckers now on the road, you know, construction workers. And I'm mostly all about work, business and pleasure, but work, and yeah, craving a massage therapy session. Sometimes still get moody, you know. I get maybe subconscious PTSD, you know. I gotta retrieve the archives. I put a deadline for 4 things which I need to do by October 31st. Retrieve the archives from the Jewish General Hospital and clean my room thoroughly, see, and get rid of some stuff, and write some letters, send some letters for work for my dream, the dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom, and of course finish the 40-day rite and propose again for the 3rd time. I proposed twice, and I got a no, maybe I'm gonna get a yes, you know. And that's just basically fundamentally what we're gonna drill it with that, if we are to be drilling it, and if we are to be doing it consequently, you know. And That's the 4 things. To retrieve the archives from the Jewish General Hospital, that's one of the 4. Parallel to cleaning my room, sending some emails and letters to NATO member public and private partners and leaders of the corporations, organizations, and public and private banking institutions. The other one is going to be for, to be the domain, to get it on that go. So that is just something which we have, of course, to be in the domain, in the appellation, what we got, to be of the situational side, of course, what we are to be doing, So that is just something which we have, of course, those 4. Yeah, and the other one, the 4th one, I guess in whatever order by October 31st is of course the one that is to retrieve the archives from the beautiful white flowers, beautiful white flowers, to retrieve the archives from the Jewish General Hospital. I was attacked by a vicious surprise attack when on the island. I was on the island. I survived the vicious surprise attack a few years ago, and I was hit in the head. I don't know if it was with a blunt object or something. I've discussed it for years, but with fists for sure. But I don't know if there was something in the hands, like blunt object or whatever other things, which were in the hand. But I was hit in the head, pop, punched hard in the head a few times, and hit my head on the concrete in the Montreal, on the island of Montreal Metro, and was bloodied up, and had a dislocated right arm, right shoulder. Turn your heads left and right, even if it's one way. Here's one way, but still. So I went to the Jewish General Hospital. They cracked back my right arm, and I was put on some meds, for pain and for. But I was kind of like, I don't remember exactly blackout, but that's basically survived that trauma. And I live with my scars, and I don't like violence. I just don't like violence. I just am hyper vigilant, I just hyper vigilance, So that's just an experience which I'm gonna have to retrieve to see. So I'm curious, because I don't have it written on journals or anything like that when that was, So that is, of course, something which we have, of course, to be on the circumstantial, of course, position where we are now, to be, of course, implemented on the left and on the right, and in the middle, and in the prudential aspects of course, of having survived that perhaps my hyper-vigilant, there's an added effect to it, not to over-intellectualize it and be too philosophical about it, but, of course, it could be that my increased hypervigilance is due to that, witnessing that surprise attack and trauma, and I don't know, I have trouble remembering my life, prior to 2014, Sometimes when it comes back, I have trouble remembering my life prior to winter-ish 2014, February 2014. January, February 2014. Look at the moon is getting full. January, February, right? That's a long time ago, considering we're ending September. It's September 29th today. Look at that. Isn't that just beautiful? How it looks? The trees with the branches spread out. Being, of course, that it is approaching October in 2 days, that we're at the end of September. That means that if it's January, February, let's say February, that means that's February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. So that's more than 11 years and 7 months ago. Beautiful flowers here. So that's a long time. It's more than 11 years and a half. So I have a very good memory of the past years, The past years. Beautiful. Of the past years, I have a very good memory, Of the past years. Of the past 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years. Then just before that, I remember, from what I know, most before that time is some writings on the journal, although some journals got damaged because I spilled coffee and I spilled coffee and food and they were to be recycled because they were illegible like 7, 8, 9 years ago. Because I kept journals where I used to live there, And then some journals where I read more recently, but some got damaged over the time, And whatever the case may be. And I have some journals and some of that, but it's not important really. But I used to live in an underground basement very small, moldy basement, you know. It's like a tight prison cell. It wasn't a prison cell, really. It was like a prison cell. It was very small. I didn't even have a bathtub. I'm grateful I have one now. I wanted to take a bath today, but I just got so preoccupied with geopolitics. You know, it is my special interest. Aspies, we have special interest, also known as obsessive interest. So, of course, geopolitics is one of my special interests, parallel to rock and roll, sports, and fitness. And that, of course, geopolitical interest is what I am also fundamentally as an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst, theorist, philosopher, and theoretician and strategist. I develop strategies for the North American Collective and have been for years and years and years. And so I always mention it in my videos that I have proof for what I'm going to say next. I predicted what's happening now in a general manner in 2019, even parallel to the PBO, the Parliamentary Budget Officer, who didn't make a prediction, who made a conclusion, a financial conclusion that we're in deep trouble and our public finances. And I was discussing this. You can check my videos starting from 3 years ago, even 3 years ago. So that is, of course, the prediction. And here we are, 29th of September. Canada, even the public finances of Canada, on a worst case scenario with a high probability of a public financial collapse. It's unprecedented, eh? So we're gonna get into that. Just want to finalize that I used to live in a small basement, Côte de Neige, CDN, Côte de Neige. It was a small Côte de Neige basement. It was a Côte de Neige, and I didn't even have a kitchen, eh? The kitchen was in my room. I had like a sink and not this. I remember the bathroom was so small. It was really like a prison cell, you know. Lots of mold. So I guess I served my time. I always say that I was saved by the goddess, G-O-D-D-S-S. I credit my survival to the goddess, G-O-D-D-S-S, because I will to build the forgotten goddess temple. So, will to build the forgotten goddess temple, and of course, that I was saved by the goddess. She doesn't need us to build her temples, because she's got the pyramids, which are tombs and temples of initiation. I'm just a piece of dust who is also a mystic, but yeah, I guess I did some good deeds in the past 11 years. Hopefully I balanced my justice, karma, and going more on the side of the good, you know. On the side of the good, you know. So on the side of the good, you know. So that is just something which I gotta always be grateful for, you know, because I don't know if there's a voting coming. We're gonna analyze the votes in the coming days, weeks ahead. Is in November. I don't know if I was, so prior to like winter 2014, I don't know if I was a junkie, you know. Sometimes I wonder, was I doing drugs, hard drugs? Was I an alcoholic? Because sometimes the trauma, and being that if I was an alcoholic, if I was doing drugs to kill my Asperger's, you know, then of course I would have been, of course, had the proposition to be not remembering, sometimes due to alcoholic intake, due to high consumption of drugs, due to all those elements, you know, which can coalesce, such as drug use, such as alcoholic, look at that, alcoholic use, things of that nature that can cause retrograde amnesia. It's just, I have trouble remembering. I have a very good memory of the past years, and of course, linguistic skills. I'm a polyglot, I speak several languages. Linguistic skills, mathematical skills, and other skills are not affected by memory loss. It's just personal memory, you know? Like high school, I don't remember high school. Supposedly I went to college, I dropped out. That's a big problem for Aspies, and just my life as a child and all those things, you know. I've been on my own for many, many, many years. I made a friend along the way who's kind of stayed, and I guess I made some friends, but due to Asperger's, I lost a lot of friends, you know. Due to Asperger's, I lost a lot of friends. That's a problem which Aspies have, you know, in the dynamic which we have now. So those are the fundamentals, you know. But of course, I gotta be grateful, because I was moody a bit earlier, but now I'm joyous, and it's always a joy for me to go to my second home. And you know, maybe because I live with my friend, and I appreciate where I live now. Oh, it's small, you know, still small, and see that. Flag spotted, flag spotted. I always carry it on me. Don't ask me when I got it. But when I see the flag spotted, I always show my flags there. See, Canada, 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 Canada. Got to tat that up, tat it up. And I wish I could buy my anonymous friend a house, and especially the one that I saw a few weeks ago. We're gonna probably go tomorrow, and I hope it's still on sale. If I would have been a millionaire, I would have bought her that house, and of course I would have bought her that house, and that is of course the fundamentals that I wanted to buy her a house, you know. I wanted to buy her a house by the river. By the river as a weeping willow, and that would have been nice, you know. That would have been nice to buy her that house just by the river, you know. Even building, but construction workers gotta take that building, and I'm gonna see somebody coming with a youth, and I'm gonna do the 4 steps. 1, 2, 3, 4. What I do is, of course, when I see people with children or with carriages, or sometimes even elderly senior citizens, my aunties and grannies here, I do the protocols: 4 steps to the right, 4 steps to the left, just to let them cross more spaciously, to have more spaciously, because of course we have the encountering, of course, of the domain of crossing on the side here, where we got to turn our heads left or right when we cross the street. So that is, of course, just the fundamentals and the public protocols. What I have them now, there are added responsibilities, duties, and obligations. If I would have stayed home, I would have not had the same obligations, duties, and responsibilities as I'm now in the public. So there are added responsibilities, duties, and obligations in parallel to the other ones, which were not the same. If I would have stayed home, I would have had less. But now I just don't have just rights and privileges. I also have duties and some obligations to my other fellow citizens, you know, the concordium of the public sphere, the public arena. You know, you have my aunties there, uncles roundabout and on the street, and then you have cars, and you have the car stopping there, and it's gonna wait a bit, and this is one way really. That's what I see. We've got a white to cross, and then now we cross together, and that's why you have to turn your heads left or right, you know. Just wait a bit. Usually I wait a few seconds, or I turn usually 3 times, you know. Usually I turn 3 times left and right, even if it's one way. For example, here is a one-way street, but I always do the due diligence, of course, of turning left or right, left or right, left or right. That's always cute, and I really love these ones. These are so nice. See, I like them. Pretty cool. See, pretty nice. Pretty nice. I like those flowers when I see them around, you know. Always brings me hell in, gives me a little bit of that good vibes, you know, good vibes, good feeling. Flowers, especially yellow flowers, just puts me in a good mood, you know. Puts me in a good mood. That's what I get, a good mood. So here, turn your heads left and right, all the way to one way. You never know. The brakes might malfunction. The electricity of the brakes might not function well, right? Somebody might press the pedal and not necessarily the brakes might malfunction, or the citizen driver might press the accelerator instead of the brake. So that's why you have to add those security protocols, you know, to balance things out. So yeah, I left that moldy place, and I'm grateful for what I have now, but something bigger I wouldn't mind, especially in terms of the financial, economic, commercial matters, to just commercial matters, you know. Yeah. That's what it is with that, and that's what we're gonna get doing, you know. Just live for today with hope for tomorrow. And I know as certain things, I'm just like my fellow Aspies, we struggle with many things of a social nature. That is more problematic and difficult for people with autism, who live with this HFA, high functioning autism, like myself, who have Asperger's. And of course, the Asperger's is of course consequential to my accepting this neurodivergence, because for years and years and years and years I've refused it, you know. And I'm part of the 50% who are unofficially diagnosed, although I call myself semi-officially diagnosed, because for many years by several individuals and citizens I have been told and who have experience with the healthcare system, or with people with autism and people with high functioning autism, with Aspies, because I still use the word Asperger's, although in 2013/2014, Asperger's condition, which is not a disease. I'm not a disease. It's not a disease. It is a neurological mental divergent condition, right? And so it has merged with autism, with HFA, high functioning autism, right? So that merger consequently has been since about more than 11 years ago, right? So that is something which I have to make clear to all, right? And to represent fully myself as an Aspie and my fellow Aspies, worldwide Aspies, global Aspies, which were not a lot. It's less than 1%. About in North America, about 0.44% of the population have. But that's keeping in mind that the actual population is double. That only half are diagnosed officially. That the actual population is about 0.88%, but it's still less than 1%. So there's not that many. There's not that many. It's rare. It's not common. Some people don't even know what it is, and I have to explain them to them. That's things. For example, I give you a concrete denomination. So personal space. Personal space might come easy. To you. Personal space might come easy. Because you're neurotypical. If you're neurotypical, part of the 99%, that there's this social concept of a personal space. For Aspies like myself, I always have to work on these characteristics because we tend to breach personal space, and instead of 4 yards distance while conversing, we might get so close to 4 inches close to the face. So I understand that this can cause a misunderstanding, this can cause an alarm, this can cause a trigger, this can cause, of course, not just an alarm or trigger, but of course, not just an alarm or trigger, but hey, look at these. I just love these. The beautiful garden, eh? Look at that. Love it, love it, love it. Nice flashy gardens, love them. And so this might cause a certain unease, discomfort, feeling of, insecurity, all those things. And this is just something that I gotta work on. Another thing is, if you might see myself, I still do it, and for years and years and years, my friend said, yeah, you look like a weirdo in the store when you do that. I said, I just didn't understand fully, because now I accepted it that I have Asperger's, HFA, high functioning autism, about 3.5 years ago. But I've been told for more than 9 years now. For more than 9 years. So I would be in a store taking an object and inspecting it close to the face. Very close, and for like a minute, turning it, reading, and sometimes we would focus on those small details. For example, I'll show you an example. For example, this, see? This would be in a store, and I would inspect it like this. Close to the eyes. But that's, of course, that can happen with a multiplicity of products. So it could be cans, it could be creams, it could be bags, it could be all sorts of products in the store. And of course, see, for example, here, this product has a number there at the corner. See, is the number 7,315. See, 7,315. And there's other numbers on it and below, sometimes small, sometimes on the side, and many products have a multiplicity of numbers, such as that number there. So we would be basically concerned with details on the objects, right? I would be checking the numbers. I discussed this, you see in my past videos. Sometimes I try the products and I say, hey, see these two numbers, and I try to speculate what they mean in terms of their industrial classification, whether there's an industry standard for the classification, whether there's an industry standard of their classification, whether there's an industry standard for their classification, and of course whether they have that standard of classification, or whether it's that number can be, of course, potentially a number which represents of course the dynamic of it being representing where it was manufactured. The manufacturing of that product might have been, of course, manufactured in that specific place, locale, and that number might be representative of the factory, or of course of the state it could be representative of that factory of the state, which it is now. So of course that factory in the state, as we're gonna get of course a little bit of that rock and roll here, gonna get a little bit of that dimension and get hydration, super important to get that hydrate. Super important. I just love and thank you workers who build this. Hey, brains and muscle just have, this is a privilege of civilization, and I discussed the protocols. Actually, it's more than a protocol. I call it my thesis, which I presented to the world, which of course is called The Privilege of Civilization, produced back in 2023. The Privilege of Civilization. And this is what Brains and Muscle has been built for me, for you, for us. An example of the privilege of civilization, because otherwise we would be drinking water from the river, you know? So. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Now we can go to the mountain. My second home. I miss this. Well hydrated, you know. That well hydration, and that's always good, you know, to have that available there. Think about it. That's a privilege of civilization, just like electricity is, eh? To have the aqueduct sanitation, to have the running water, eh? The running water as well. Think about that. Just the running water is something which is important, eh? Running water, you know, it's very important. Have the running water. You have the running water, and you can do dishes. I did dishes today. I actually like doing dishes. I like water and fire, but I like water. I like doing dishes. Doing dishes. Water. Take a shower. I took a shower. I have a bathtub now, you know, so I have a bathtub so I can bathe. Where I used to live, down there a few kilometers away, I don't have the bathtub. I didn't take baths. I couldn't take baths where I live. So I'm grateful what I have now. That's why I take them often, also to substitute for the fact that I am not able to afford a massage therapy session. But, you know, Wall Street billionaires across the North American Collective, across the 63, always for the 10, the 50, and the 3. You know who deserves it, earn it more than yours truly? Yeah, the firefighters. Firefighters, they deserve it yours more than yours too. Firefighters, they deserve it more than yours truly. You know, so firefighters, not just the firefighters. Not just the firefighters, but of course the truckers, and those of course who pick up the garbage, you know, sanitation workers. So they deserve it more than yours truly. They deserve it more than yours truly, you know? They deserve it. So finance them, please, on my behalf, and I'm volunteering to do some massages, I don't mind, you know? To serve, and that's what the call of the Draconis is all for, you know, to create it, which I've been discussing it for many years now, my ideas, theories, protocols, and you see how my brain now works, because I passed at this point event, And now, being that it's Monday 29th of September and that gas is 159, that it went up, all these are eating money. All these cars, most of the cars, except if they're hybrid and electric, although also electricity, right? But the gas, I'm referring to gas specific, all these cars now are eating money. Money. And the money that is eaten now by all the cars, these four, 1, 2, 3, 4, and those ones, and all the cars, is of course more than about 75% what the price was in 2020, February 2020. So even that car, all these cars, right? Because the price of gas went up considerably since 2020. So that is the constant, is that they're spending generally 75% more. What is the variable? Mathematical financial variable is the price of gas, of course, because that car, see these four cars, 1, 2, 3, 4, that one might consume 11 per 100 kilometers, 12 per 100 kilometers, 13 and 14, XYZ. So those numbers of the consumption are of course the constant. So the constant mathematics is of course how much they consume. You know, how much they consume. Go firefighters, go. So the consumption is always the same. Right? What has changed is the price of gas. Oh, somebody's going down. Hey, go Hydro-Quebec, go. See, that's how we got lights here. All that electricity that comes here comes from clean, zero pollution, zero emission energy. Zero pollution energy. All this electricity comes from zero pollution, zero emission energy. All of it that you see. And interestingly enough, of course, we have 63 dams. We need to build some more. But also our electricity goes to 5 or 6 states now. All the way, of course, to Manhattan Island. 20% it goes, of course, all the way there, 6 states. So that is just something which we have, of course, to conclude in all the operational, of course, the differential aspects where we are now to be, in all the affairs, of course, in the prudence where we are now to be in the domains where we are, eh? So of course it's something which we have, of course, to get the dimension appellated. So now that we are to conclude in the domain where we are now, to encourage you all to do a little meditation. The domain refers to the segment of the trucks and the cars that are here, but considering that the price of gas has generally went up. But for Montreal, the average prices were in February 2020 93 cents. So for Montreal, hot cotton was 93 cents. Now today, last month, it was about 163. So that is about 75%, but generally it is so. But of course you can do the conversion from miles, from kilometers to miles, from miles to kilometers very easily so. Or from liters to gallons. A gallon is 4 liters, 4, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 liters a gallon. So the constant mathematical reality for cars is that they always will consume a certain amount per 100 kilometers distance that the engine consumes for the car to get from point A to point B for 100 kilometers. But what changes the variable, that's a constant, a mathematical constant. The variable is the price of gas, right? So of course now they get less. So of course they get less, meaning 75% less about estimations. Of course, those estimations, just to make another calculation here. So of course that calculation here, see, just to check a little bit of that calculation here. So see these 4 cars, right? All these 4 cars have a certain amount that they consume per 100 kilometers, right? So they would consume a certain amount, right? Certain amount. All of these cars consume a certain amount, but they vary. What doesn't vary, what's a constant, what's not a variable mathematical to calculate mathematically, the financial cost, the constant for each and every car is an individual automobile which consumes. Now they're eating money. That the constant is how much they consume, and the variable is the price of gas. So since we compare from 2020 to this year, that means that 75% financially mathematical, each and every one will consume 75% more, will pay more for the same distance, just to clarify the cost of living, right? So that car will pay 75% more than what they paid in 2020 February. This car also, all of them. So this we can generalize. right? You get the mathematics, financial mathematics, right? So this is just financial mathematics. So basically, all of these cars now are paying 75% more mathematically, because the price of gas has increased by about 75% in the past years. So that means that they buy less of other goods. The mathematics, the financial mathematics, that's just numbers, you know, just numbers. The numbers just don't lie. Just this is how it is, you know. So this car, that car pays 75% more than what they paid in February 2020. So that means that they buy less because the salaries have stagnated. So you realize that's why we're in deep trouble. We're in deep trouble. I've been warning about this since about 3 years, as I've been warning, of course, sounding the alarm about the World War III. Not a lot of people listen. I have the proof, I have the video. I know I'm different, but see, Asperger's is not bad, it's not evil, it's not negative. And sometimes, and I've been doing this, of course, for years, because sometimes just the numbers pop into my brain, right? So it's a constant thing, mathematics. So when I go on my marches, I calculate, of course, the financial cost. So that financial mathematical cost, even though paradoxically, I am, of course, financially stressed, of course. Financially stressed myself, but my stress is due to having suffered and struggled due to being an ASPE, being autistic, having HFA. And please don't give me the, oh yeah, but there's ASPEs who are multimillionaires, millionaires, billionaires, you know. Don't give me that, you know. That is something which you have to go, of course, to appellate in the circumstantial positions where we are now, of course, to appellate in all the domains where we are now. So, of course, that is the situation where we have now, of course, to be, of course, mindful of the situational complex where we are in this domain, meaning the domain and the segment of seeing all these cars, and of course knowing that the reality is that they each spend more on gas. Right? Because that is the price of gas is the variable, the mathematical variable. Thus, because the mathematical variable allows so, you know, just the mathematical variable allows it for so to be, that is just the reality, the financial economic reality, the financial reality economics of the matters, of course, where we are now, the financial reality. So that is just mathematics. Financial mathematics. I'm no expert, I'm not good, and please don't give me the, yeah, you're financially stressed, but there's ASPEs who are multi-millionaires and millionaires. Well, yeah, but of course, keep in consideration that, of course, 4 out of 5, 80% of ASPEs are unemployed, which is the main problems. So now I'm going to just finish a little bit on Asperger's, because it's important, because you see how my brain now works differently, and I love these sort of mathematics. I could do them all day, and I do them on my marches. I've been doing them for years and years and years and years. You know, not just relatively to the cost of gas, but of course to the prices of everything else. And myself, I don't have credit cards. I don't have credit cards. I have a credit line, $10,000. So that's my debt, $10,000 in debt. So once again, just because it's important. So that is the bottom line, is that it is, thank you. But basically, of course, it's 75%. 75%, you know. That is just what it is. With that 75%. Of course, that is just the mathematical constant, which it is, of course, to get it in the appellation, of course, in the domain where we are now. And of course, that is just something which we have, you know. There's no, that's not my fault. So that is just the reality, right? That is just the reality. That is just the reality. That is just the reality, you know? So the mathematical reality is this constant, of course, what we have now, of course, in the appellation, and of course in the integral manner, where of course it is. So of course to be that, we pay more on gas. Every car, because the consumption stays the same. The consumption is a constant. So to get from point A to point B, that is of course the same. That will consume, the car will consume that amount, right? From point A to point B, that car, this car, that car will consume X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D amount, right? A, B, C, D amount. ABCD amount, right? So that is just the cars, how they operate. And if an N.A.C.W.P would have a special interest cars, then an N.A.C.W.P would know, of course, everything about the automobiles. I wonder what this is for. This doesn't look kind of interesting here. Anyways, public workers with that, so that's just something which we have to salute, because we got the aqueducts underneath, we got sewers, we got a lot of work. You see, arbeit, go public works, go. And sometimes I wonder, how they built all the sewers, the canals underneath in the 20th century, So much work built has been done for us to have sanitation, We wouldn't have the toilets, The toilets and all that. There's showers, toilets, all that is connected to the work and labor underneath. So, of course, that is just something which, of course, we have to be mindful of. All the work, of course, underneath, where you have, of course, to categorize and, of course, appellate that the civilizational complex of North America, we all have and share the privileges thereof. Myself as an individual sovereign citizen, with other individual sovereign citizens, and as a collective as a whole. Me being that I'm part of this minority of neurodivergence, and in parallel I am also a member of the minority of sexual diverse people, sexually diverse, androgynous, pansexual. But I'm a good philosopher, and I'm not frustrated in any ways, I'm not sexually frustrated. If I would be, I would discuss it. I'm craving, I'm dying. No, I was suicidal and depressed, but not because of that, because I was in the openness. Because because I'm different, and I couldn't keep friends, and I couldn't keep a job, and rejection, isolation. N.A.C.Ps, you know what it is. If you're an N.A.C.P, you know what's the deal, We lose friends, we're different, So our brains is different. And no, not all N.A.C.Ps are good at computer science. Yes, a disproportionate amount of N.A.C.Ps are good at computer science. A disproportionate amount are good at computer science, of course. A disproportionate amount are good at computer science, A disproportionate amount are good in relation to the neurotypical population, right? It's 20% of N.A.C.Ps, generally 1 out of 5, which are good, very good at computer science. But that is proportional, or rather, the proportionality thereof is, of course, in relation, of course, to the proportionality is, of course, the relation with the relation with the neurotypical population, of which most of you are neurotypicals, the 99%ers of the population, 99% of the population, you are neurotypicals. So, which your populations, of the population of neurotypicals, which is good with computers, is about 1 to 4%, depending on the regions or states of North America, whether Quebec, California, Texas, or for example British Columbia or Ohio, Utah, etc., 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 etc. That is, of course, just how it is with the domain where we have now to be in the congregation, of course, in all the things which we have now to be mindful of, where we are to be, all the domains and where we have now to live in this reality now, that we have to build bridges. Sometimes small bridges across the street, turn your heads left and right, so small bridges, medium-sized bridges, large bridges, extra large. Those are generally those 4 types of size and bridges which we gotta build with you neurotypicals. Between us N.A.C.Ps and you, we gotta build them together, because I don't have antagonistic feelings or hostile feelings, resentful feelings versus you, the 99%ers of the population who are neurotypicals. But we have to build bridges. I'm just saying those sizes, and those sizes are the realistic evaluations thereof. Just like when you order a coffee or a fry, you might order a small coffee and an extra large fry. Coffee or fries, you might order small coffee or fry, medium coffee or fry, large coffee or fry, extra large coffee or fry. Within those 4, there's some categories, but general, of course, those are the 4 which you have to, of course, align, of course, to order. So those are the bridges which we have to build, right? In complementary, of course, where we gotta align ourselves to turn your heads left or right, and of course that is just the dimension here where we are on the mountain. So those bridges have to be built, of course, in the consequential operation where we got now to be, of course, all the domains, and we have, of course, to evaluate all the other characteristics which, of course, are inside ourselves as N.A.C.Ps, as neurodivergence, and of course the external plateau, of course, of which we are now, to get, of course, the other dimension of the building of these bridges, which requires, of course, a semi-reciprocal endeavor, right? From us to you, from each side. It has to be from each side. So, ASPs are disproportionately good in comparison to you, the majority of the population, good at computers. But within the ASP population, it's 1 out of 5, about 20%. But in your population, in your typical population, it's about 1 to 4%. So it could be seen that sometimes it's 11 times more. And generally, above average ASPs like myself have above average mathematics skills. Myself, I love mathematics, but it's an ASP type of love, eh? So I could do, and I do it on the daily. Sometimes the answers just come into my head, especially when it's multiplication, division, subtraction, and of course things to calculate the percentages, such as of course the ratio and the percentages increases in the food expenses, or just the price of gas, because there's so many people, all those cars, inadvertently the drivers, those who filled up with the gas, they pay 75% average 75% more than what it was paid in February. And if you calculate with the average prices, the price of gas average, and with the price, the increases, averages, and the increases in, of course, salaries, you see that the salaries have increased only about 4.4%. Not even close, not even 5. So you see the big difference. You understand what's going on financially? So that's mathematics, financial mathematics. So the majority of the population is suffering because of this. Prices of gas have skyrocketed so much. And of course, that adds now with the inflationary pressures and the prices of gas, and of course the prices of gas with the prices of other goods that are increasing, that just creates a tremendous pressure thereof. That just creates a tremendous pressure, added pressure, right? So that car also pays, if it's hybrid, no, if it's electric, no, but if it has gas, it pays also 75, about average 75% more than in February 2020, because the average price of gas in February 2020 was exactly 93 cents, right? So from 93 cents, now it's about $1.63, right? So that's $1.63, that's about more than 70 cents. But that in percentage is a big percentage, right? Is a big percentage. So that percentage is big in percentage wise. The percentage is huge, It's just big. It's really big. It's really big. Right? It's just really big. Too big. It's not sustainable. Just like our PBO, I said that it's not sustainable. We cannot sustain our group. It's not sustainable. The prices cannot keep increasing, in other words, with the stagnation of the salaries. We cannot. The majority of the population cannot sustain it. That's just like we got. So, that's what we got. And that is, of course, something which we have to be doing like that. And we got to get it on those drills. So, of course, that is just the fundamental aspects of where we got now. So, of course, all that is, of course, to say that is something which we have, of course, to protrude ourselves to be. Tell me. Tell us. We're listening. Tell us, we're listening. Tell me. We're listening. Tell me. Gonna check if I can get some water there. Still thirsty, imagine. I don't think it's working. Let's see. Oh yeah, it's working now. I'm gonna check it on the side. So that is how our brains are different. So that difference, I'm glad I stopped again for some water. Feel refreshed. This is nice. That's nice. Yeah. Wow. That's some ghosts. Double ghosts, eh? Double ghosts. So back to what I was saying, of course, the reality is that all those cars are paying 75% more, right? 75% more. 75% generally. $75% more. So this adds an unsustainability. Look at that. Kids are gonna love it. That's good. And please, business, you know, reduce the costs of the tickets. So it moves the eyes. See? Moves the eyes. Blinky blink, blinky blink. Scary creatures. So 75% increase in the price of gas all the cars for the same distance, unless you reduce the distance average, because you might average X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D. That means that you still pays 75% more per liter, right? So you financially, the burden is very, very, very bad, because the majority of the salaries have stagnated, right? So of course the majority of the salaries have stagnated is of course that majority of the salaries being stagnated roundabout. That is of course just what we have of course to do. So that stagnation of the salaries is what we have to keep in mind while we continue this economical meditation and saluting the truckers, the butchers, the nurses, train conductors. The daycare workers changing diapers and butchers. And of course, that is the great problem that we're facing now. That we're facing now. Right? That we're facing now. So this is the great problem that we're facing now in the general aspect. In the general aspect, right? In the general aspect. Of course, that is the general aspect, of course, of what we're facing now. Of what we're facing now. Of what we're facing now, right? So this is just the realities of the economics, the financial economics, what we're facing it now. And of course, that is just the realities. And I'll be watching it for those who have that long fur, because I start sneezing, you know. I start sneezing. I start achoo, 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 achoo. So don't want to get that at you, you know. It's not that good. I can pet poodles, so that's why usually I stay a distance with that. That is what it is. And of course, that is just the realities. Back to the economical, financial meditation. So basically, fundamentally, you got to keep in mind the constants, the constant, and the variable. The constant and the variable. So the constant and the variable is, of course, the constant is that it's always the same mathematically. That's a constant. That means that car there, this car, that car, this car, that car, those 4 cars here, 1, 2, 3, 4, consume a certain amount which doesn't change per 100 kilometers. Per that same distance, the consumption, right? Per 100 kilometers usually, let's say 11 liters, not gallons. Gallons is times 4, that's 44 liters. No, no cars consumes that much, right? So it's liters per 100 kilometers. You can convert it into miles and gallons, but of course that is the mathematical calculations which one is proposed to do. If it is, of course, to do in it in the conquer, with of course to do in the evaluation that you can go in the United States and do that conversion from liters into gallons, as I am here now on the mountain. You can see down how it goes down slope on the mountain, Mount Royal, and there of course we are on the mountain, the three peak mountain, Mount Royal and West Mount and Mount Royal, and of course Outremer. So that is of course just the appellation where we have now to be in the situational awareness of this consumption. So that car that's coming now, that has X amount. So the X is the constant. It will always consume X amount of liters per 100 kilometers, right? If the Y is the variable, if the X is the constant, meaning the consumption, the Y is the variable, and that means that the Y in 2020 February was 93 cents. The Y last month, August 2025, was 163. So you do 163.9 minus 93, that is, yeah, that's a big difference. See the difference? That is 170.70. So that's about 75% in percentage. That's why I came to the, but my mind does it. And even when I march, I meditate, and I do this in the background constantly, you know. I meditate, of course. Here we're in a more affluent neighborhood, so I guess some can afford it more than others, you know, even though you never know, it could be, appearances can be deceiving, you know. My thoughts, ideas, formulations of my theories, I know they're worth billions and billions and billions and trillions of dollars. I got those trillions of dollars credited from the forgotten goddess to lay the foundations for the kingdom, the empire, you know. And this is a beauty here. I got those trillions of kisses for the empire. It's always God bless and goddess kiss. And I got that food in my backpack now, so I'm grateful. And my uncle, auntie, whoever it is there lets me cross. Although I got that pedestrian, I'm supposed to get priority, but gotta let me pass there. But always here, some more dangerous corners. I always check left or right, because you never know, the brakes malfunction sometimes. See the brakes, sometimes the citizen driver might press the accelerator. So if the citizen driver presses the accelerator, that can be problematic, to say the least, eh? So it's not 100%. That's why we have our responsibilities ourselves, and the duties, the responsibilities which we have, of course, to navigate in, and we navigate with those duties, responsibilities ourselves, and that is just something which we have to do now. Just to equate the counterbalancing aspects, of course, of being in the prudential aspects of the realities where we got now, to be in that domain, you know. So as I admire these beautiful flowers here, and going to the mountain, my second home, my mistress. So we're gonna finalize on the cost of living, but it's important because the gas prices is a big part of it, because even some goods, because trucks for the most part are still using gas. So because most trucks are still using gas, that of course adds to the increase in the price of the goods, because the transportation costs more. Right? That's also correlated to, of course, at least partially justified for the prices to increase in such a manner. So the calculation, the mathematical calculation thereof, can also be broken down in the simple principles that it's about 75% more that all paying gas per liter compared to 5 years ago, while the salaries have pretty much only increased in the past 5 years by about 4.4%. Right, so that is the constant, and those are the variables. So within those dimensions, there is of course the integral aspect of the variations of these integrities, where they have it now, of course, to be in all the civilizational context where we are, of course, to involve ourselves now of the realities of our, what I call the North American Collective, or the North American Civilizational Collective. And the reality is that we have here in Canada the tar sands, but unfortunately the tar sands, the extraction of the gas is at a high cost, financial, economic cost, monetary cost, and it's a high environmental one. So those double troubles, although there has been some progress in the 21st century, but imagine we would be discovering a way to extract the gas, which is in the bitumen, in the tar sands in Alberta. We would have total security. We wouldn't need to import any, because Alberta, the tar sands in Alberta is, we got to double check, I believe it's one of the biggest reserves, if not the biggest reserves of oil in terms of the the capacity the maximum capacity of barrels in the tar sands. But again, the tar sands, of course, in Alberta, the problem is extraction. The scientific extraction, technologically, of course, we cannot extract it properly because it's a cost to the environment. When the monetary costs, the monetary costs. You don't like knowing, eh? Of course, that is the relation of the tar sands. Now, if you would be able to extract it, then probably we would have security in terms of oil, well, energy independence. We wouldn't need to import oil, right? The paradox of the tar sands. But again, the feasibility, the extraction, technologically, it's costly economically, and environmentally there's that cost. But more and more there has been more and more progress in the late 20th century and this 21st century. So imagine if we find a way that doesn't pollute at all to extract it from the sands, the tar sands. That would be like a miracle for petroleum production in North America and Canada, in Alberta specifically. Anyways, the tar sands, check them out if you don't know what I'm discussing about. The tar sands in Alberta are a very, very high reserves of petroleum oil, very high in reserves, very, very, very high. I think it's maybe even the biggest, supposedly, right? I think the biggest is actually supposedly, again, on the coast of Venezuela, but this is underwater, so again it cannot be extracted. So the extraction again of the Venezuela, that is called here in front of the ocean by their sea, I think it's part of the territory of Venezuela. There might be some dispute there if it's international or if it's actually Venezuela, because if it's international, then I guess first come first serve. It's international, it's first corporation, first come first serve. It's because by the United Nations and other treaties and organizations that we have, it's 200 kilometers from the shores of a country that's considered the country's territorial waters. 200, right, from the shore. So if it's that shore, from there it's 200, the water's 200 kilometers externally. That's just how it is. Kilometers or miles? I'm asking you the question, if somebody made it this far. Kilometers or miles? Because 200 kilometers and 200 miles, now that's a bit of a distinction there, because 200 miles is way more by a considerable percentage than 200 kilometers, because 200 miles is about 300 kilometers, right? 200 miles, while 200 kilometers, it's about 144 miles. Hey, look at what we have here. Halloween, it's Halloween. Gotta sing it before you see it. Halloween, you've gotta be it. On the go. I like Dracula's and the child. Dracula and his wife. Hat fell down, but Dracula. And not me, I'm not Dracula. I was serving under Dracula's command in a past life, previous incarnations. As you know, I'm a mystic, I believe in reincarnations, but see, Dracula, the wife of Dracula, and Dracula's child right there. I have a child, Dracula. Hey? And this one, we have that green, of course, when we have to get that LOVE for the green. Love it here, thank you. I wish I could. My joy to see would have been if I've been a millionaire billionaire, would have gotten so much candy across North America and just donated, to children. Because it's a good holiday for them. I love Halloween myself. I get dressed up, every year. I don't remember my life prior to 2014, like January, February, winter 2014. So sometimes it comes back, man. What doesn't matter, back to my work. So I'm just gonna finalize on that. Gas generally has been going up every year, and now it's kind of stabilized in the past 2 years, but it has gone up tremendously since COVID started in February 2020. By the way, I had COVID. I thought I was gonna die. I got triple vaxxed, and please try to keep the protocols of COVID as much as you can. Super important to try to keep the protocols of COVID, as much as you can. Try to keep the protocols of COVID as much as you can, the public hygienic protocols. Hey, this looks like a map, eh? Look at that. Right, like a map. Like a map. What country though? So try to please keep the protocols of COVID, hygienic protocols, super important, to disinfect the hands, clean. And I got triple vaxxed myself, 3 vaccines, and that's it for me. But I had it in between mid-February 2020 and mid-March 2020. I really said that was it for me. I thought I was gonna die, so of course I thought I was gonna die, and of course dying, I did not. I thought I was going to die, but it was really like death, pestilence, and disease. Pestilence, death, and disease. And it was like death, pestilence, and disease, but I didn't die. I survived, and just like I survived being attacked by surprise, that vicious surprise attack years and years ago, when I was bloodied up and hit in the head and fell in my head on the concrete and had a dislocated right arm shoulder. And by October 31st, for sure, I'm going to go to the Jewish General Hospital to retrieve my archives, and see what it is with that, and of course get it on the go with that, to get it on the dynamics, of course, to do it, and of course to implement all the protocols where we are now, for the importance of my work is, of course, mostly important is my work, and of course everything that I do in regards to my work, and of course all my artistic work and philosophical work and geopolitical work, which needs to be, of course, implemented across what I call the North American Collective, and expanded, of course, into NORAD. So NORAD, NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, member countries organization. So now I'm just gonna finalize the discussion on Asperger's, because for my fellow Aspies, as always, I gotta give a shout out to my anonymous friend who gifted me 2 books on autism. They have several chapters on Asperger's, and one book, super important, was loaned 4 times. It was a library loan from the library 4 times, and I read it. And keep in mind that for years and years I've been told and semi-officially diagnosed, and only about 44 months ago I have accepted it, because I didn't want to wear the label, the stigma of being different and having this difference, which again, Asperger's, also known as HFA, is not a disease. It's not a disease. It's not an illness. Yes, we're different, bizarre, awkward, strange. Our brains are differently, and the cause is inconclusive, and there's no medication, right? Of course, if an Aspie is depressed and suicidal, which is a big problem, 9 times more higher than the neurotypicals, and again, not all Aspies are geniuses at computers. A high disproportionate numbers from the statistics among the population that are very good at computers, or above average in computers and with computers and computer science, about 20%, but that's higher than the neurotypical population indeed. But considering that we're less than 1%, it is something which have to also consider, and of course that the appellation what we have now, of course, to be conclusive, of course, the situational awareness where we have now, of course, to be on the situational that we have, of course, to be now in the consideration, of course, where we are. So of course that is just something where we got, of course, to be in the dimensions where we are propositions to love and of course live together. It is the dimension that we have to build those bridges, and that is super important, of course, to build those bridges, and that is one of the most important things which we have to do in the 21st century, because there's more and more work which has been done apropos and vis-a-vis what Asperger's is and what is not. And it's not a disease, and we're not evil, we're not bad, we're not negative, we're not malicious, and we're not a disease. Because I remember I overheard people when I was working, I had many jobs, but the problem with Asperger's is we tend to lose our jobs, after 4 months, 3 months, 2 months, 3 weeks, 2 days, 4 days, And I remember people are saying, you know, in French, oh, that's a disease, and c'est une maladie, that's a disease. No, it's not a disease, you know. And there's no medication, you know. There's no medication for Asperger's. I can only manage the characteristics. I can only manage the characteristics. There's no disease, so I can only manage the characteristics. Manage the characteristics. Gonna wait because now it's green for them, and I know it's gonna check it out. Oh, I was checking the phone. Now be sure that's where the stop is, but always turn your heads left and right, you know, before you cross the street. Make sure, you know, make sure you cross the street prudently and turn your heads. You can see part of the downtown core area with that, and you can see part of the skyscrapers, and of course all those skyscrapers that you can see there, you can see part of them. Of course, all this electricity is from zero pollution. Zero pollution. It does not pollute. All our electricity does not pollute. All our electricity does not pollute. All our electricity does not pollute. All the electricity that we have here, it does not pollute, eh? All of it. You use this one and that one, does not pollute. See? Look at that moon. Look at that. So of course all the electricity that we have here, it does not pollute. It does not pollute. Right? All of it. 99%. It does not pollute. See? All that you see comes from Hydro-Quebec. So back to Asperger's, this neurodivergence makes us predisposed to special interests, right? Special interests. These special interests can also bring great joy. And a lot of Aspies tend to excel in them, as I excel in my rock and roll. The lyrics, not necessarily the voice and the vocal. I'm not necessarily with the voice and the vocal, but of course, the voice and the vocal, of course, are something else. But creating the rhythm, the lyrics, the songs on a daily basis, I love that rock and roll 24/7, and sports and fitness. And of course, sports and fitness, and parallel to sports and fitness is geopolitics. Geopolitics. You know, so that is just what it is with me. 24/7, constantly, for years and years and years and years, sometimes hours a day. Eh? I don't realize that sometimes even today, I spend hours and hours and hours just analyzing geopolitical events, because just like the money never sleeps, the sun, there's always a sunrise and a sunset. Hey, every second there was a sunrise and there was a sunrise and a sunset. There's a sunrise and a sunset, and of course, always a sunrise and a sunset. And money never sleeps, and geopolitics never sleeps, because events, because of time zones, are unfolding. Meetings between heads of nation states and consulates and embassies every hour, eh? There's new geopolitical developments. We have more than 156 countries and different organizations, so that is the reality. So as I check news from different parts of the world, right? From different parts of the world, there's always geopolitics, geopolitical events always occur, right? They're always, every hour. That's just the reality. That's just the reality of our world. They develop. So it's always geopolitics with me. When in the morning, in the afternoon, at night, when I go back after this, going to the mountain, I go back, I eat, I do geopolitics, revision, meditation, and especially vis-a-vis what I predicted, because I predicted generally what's happening now, eh? Back in 2019. I have proof, I have the video online. So back to Asperger's, it's not a disease. We are different, right? We are different. We have this difference, which can be reconciled. It's not evil, it's not bad, it's not negative. It's just different, and so we see the world differently, and because we see the world differently, right, we see the world differently, and so we have the way in which we see the world is different. One's recycling. I have this to recycle. Yeah, see, that one's supposed to be recycled, but it should be more green because some people don't look there. See, it's supposed to be one for recycling, one for that, and see, let's see, is it the same for that one? Is it the same? Is it? Oh, I think they're mixing it this one way. It's supposed to be the same. Anyways, so that's how we have to do our part, eh? Just to put in the recycling if it goes in the recycling. If it doesn't go in the recycling, you put it in the other. So if it goes in the recycling, you put it in the recycling. If it doesn't go in the recycling, you put it on the side. So that just is how we gotta drill it. And here we are. We go atop the mountain, and Asperger's, again, is not a disease. It's not an illness. It's not an illness. It's not a disease. It is a difference, a divergence, which is not evil, bad, negative. Yes, we have problems. The problems are that we have difficulties, and I don't use the word disability, but I use the word less able or less capable because of our brain differences. We have certain troubles interpreting certain social communications. What comes easy for you, the hive mind, the neurotypical, might not for us. And I got to give a shout out to my friend again for that book, which was loaned 4 times from the library, called Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome. Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome, I strongly recommend to Aspies and non-Aspies alike, neurotypicals alike, for your reading, for your enjoyment, to learn more. And as an Aspie, I learned valuable information because we can be vulnerable, Aspies, through certain things because we don't know, and because of that vulnerabilities which we have and we encounter to have, that we can be prone to certain things and certain... Look at that, that's my favorite skyscraper there, see? The pyramid. So we can be, of course, open to certain abuse, and we can be, of course, harmed in a way because of our difference and because of how we see the world differently, and because of our kind of lack in a way, or being less capable in social affairs and social communications. Of course, social communications and affairs and how we interpret the world and how we see the world is sometimes, of course, different, and this difference, again, is not bad, evil, or maleficent. It's just different. And so we gotta build bridges. I am here atop the mountain, and I go to the top and see, you can see part of the bridge there. I'm part of my favorite skyscraper there. See, this is from the side, and you can see part of the downtown core area right from here. See, part of the downtown core area, which you can see right from this side here. See, hey, see, that's my favorite skyscraper, the pyramid. And we got that beauty here from the side of the mountain, Mount Royal proper. And so we're gonna go a little bit into the darkness and finalize the discussion on high functioning Asperger's also. But it's Asperger's or HFA, high functioning autism, they're one and the same. So yeah, we can be strange, weird, and awkward, but we're not evil, we're not negative, we're not malicious. We're just, the way we see the world is different from you, and certain things don't come that easy for us. And we have to build these bridges, and we have our strengths, but we also have the four main problems which we encounter most are we tend to lose friends. We don't have a lot of friends generally, Aspies. That's why I have the solution, don't waste my time, I won't waste yours, is friends with benefits only, or pledge your allegiance, legions, and consequently, pledge your allegiance, legions is also the support a dream, the dancing goddess in the dragon kingdom. And of course, the other problem which we encounter is the lack is a very high suicidal and depression, and I was there from like summer 2014 till summer 2017, 9 times. Although we're a tiny minority of less than 1%. For one of you who's suicidal or depressed, there's about 9 of us. There's about 9 of us. 9 of us. So high suicidal rates, depression rates, lack of friends, isolation, and the other problem is also the lack of long-term employment. Not that we don't get, because as we get employment, get jobs, it's just keeping them long-term. Keeping long-term employment can be problematic. That's why generally, even today, 2025, imagine that the unemployment rate for us, we're a tiny minority, stands at about 80%. Can you imagine 80%? 80%. 80%. 80%. 80%, you know, so that is very high. That is very, very problematic. 80%, that's 4 out of 5. Ask me. So myself, I had many jobs during COVID even. And before COVID, it's just, sometimes they were short-lived. Sometimes they were 4 months, 3 months, a few weeks, a few days, a few weeks, a few days, a few weeks, a few days. So high unemployment, 80%, 4 out of 5, totally unacceptable, eh? Big scourge, big problem. That's why it's mostly my stress is economic, financial, because I started my fitness journey, which I recommend to all, back in 2017, eh? Back in 2017, you know? That's where I began my fitness journey. Back in 2017 when, of course, when I concluded my trip and I went coast to coast, ocean to ocean. Coast to coast, ocean to ocean. And I cross Canada, coast to coast. That event got me out of depression. And I started my fitness journey then. I lost between 80 and 93 pounds. And now I see the moon getting fuller every day from my mistress, which is fierce in the darkness, Mother Nature, who's got her fierce ways. And when I come here sometimes, I get flashes of reincarnation. Sometimes I was born a man, a woman, a woman, a man, man, a woman, woman, a man, a woman, woman, a man, man, a woman. That was the priestess Pythia who orated the great Rethria to Lycurgus. I was the great priestess Pythia who orated the great Rethria to Lycurgus. I was the great priestess Pythia who orated the great Rethria to Lycurgus. So of course all that appellation and all that, of course, love, because I want to be loved, and please hug for me, you know. I could use a big hug. Don't waste your time, life is short. And I see them across the 63, the 10, the 50 and the 3, my children across Canada, United States, and that NATO who are innocent and loving now, and that teenage love, and you know, it's always good. Otherwise, what are we fighting to save for, you know? Millionaires, billionaires, you got your paper, got your money. Don't be so selfish. I'm not totally selfless. Not totally selfless myself. I got lusts. I got love for the wafers and chocolate and white chocolate, black chocolate. If you're white, you're black. You're a man, you're a woman. You gotta be 18 plus. You wanna come LOV with me? We can come do some of that loving. And here in the forest, I'm the mistress. In the darkness, sometimes I just, my illusions are broken. I guess sometimes we are aspies, because in the world, like aliens, extraterrestrials, to break some of illusions which some people have. And This is the fundamental aspects of being, with nature and civilization. And it's been my home for many, many years, this island, in past life, as well as a man, a woman, a man, a woman, woman, a man. I lived as a woman here between 1788 and 1735, and as a man I met Louis Sid. I served in the RCMP before it was known as the RCMP, and other such matters, and all of the journeys across lifetimes here with this neurodivergence who calls all willing loving to pledge your allegiance for the kingdom, for our Imperial Democratic Republic of the 63, and to finalize on Asperger's, autism, HFA, specific type of autism. That, of course, we have HFA, high functioning autism, and we have the general aperçu of the dynamics of where we are now to live with this difference, So this difference is perhaps, I can't say no, I can't say yes yet. It's not Tylenol. Tylenol, it's a brand, but it's the acetaminophen, which is the ingredient in Tylenol supposedly during pregnancy. I doubt it, to be honest. No, I don't think so, but I'm not a scientist. I got to check more on that. So what do you say, Aspies? And regardless, we have it. And once you have it, like me, a young Aspie or HFA or high-functioning autistic, like myself, whether you're an adult or 50, 60, or 30s, 20s, or early teens, whatever the case may be, we have to be aware of that. We have to integrate fully and accept, because we can bring a lot of things on the table, paradoxically, as I bring not just my kisses from the forgotten goddess, as I will to build the four. And we got the problems. Yeah, we have problems maintaining friends, maintaining employment. It's problematic. It is problematic, but don't waste my time. What for? Just friends with benefits only, or just stay away from me, and that's it. That's all. Rock and roll. You want to rock and roll? You want to do geopolitics? You want to work out? You want to trade? You want to pledge your allegiance to our family? Or, as I'm rebirthing, that died of being reborn, Adrian Hanna Dragon, Draconis, pansexual founder of the dancing goddess Dragon Kingdom, keep my holy, sacred, and divine name out of your mouth if it's not for a blessing. Priestess Hanna kisses, rainbow dragon blessings, and keep my holy, sacred, and divine name rebirthing on this mountain, this island, as I die here. Adrian Hanna Dragon, Priestess Hanna motherfucker, rainbow dragon, philosopher, artist, athlete, and Adrian Hanna Dragon, keep my holy, sacred, and divine name out of your mouth. If it's not for a blessing, otherwise let it be pestilence, let it be pestilence, let it be pestilence, let it be pestilence. Hope we have an understanding. So that is, suffering, struggled, and I'm joyous. I have a smile, and was a bit moody earlier, but now I got some sweat. I feel good. I know somebody's gonna hug good tonight. Hug like you never hugged for myself. Somebody's gonna do that good loving, whether straight love, lesbian love, homosexual love. Give me all of that black, white, and rainbow. I am pansexual for years and years and years and years. Like, at least from my memory, that I can remember. Because if I go back prior to winter of 2014, I just can't remember my life prior to that era, which was a long time ago. But so I guess I was in the open since more than 11 years now, and it's 2014. But I don't know, maybe because of that. Maybe I was drinking, maybe I was an alcoholic, I don't know. Maybe that surprise attack, look at that moon, that head trauma and being hit in the head, maybe falling, having hit my head on the concrete and played up. Or maybe I was doing drugs and alcohol, and hard drugs and alcohol combined, plus attack by surprise, vicious hits in the head. Maybe that's what done it, But I lost a lot of weight, between 80 and 93 pounds. I am proud of what I created, the General Integrated Total Body Training System. And I'm not that good at some certain things, like many Aspies. And we have to be told more directly. Sometimes we're also very direct, very straightforward. And that might be a problem, It's not because we mean to offend or be rude. But I cultivate very much politeness. And of course, Priestess Hanna. Priestess Hanna, Priestess Hanna, Priestess Hanna. Ready to serve my allies and armies, and whatever needs to be served, you got to be 18 plus for that type of service. And that special priestess of Thelema buried me with Papa Crowley, third me up in New Jersey, the city of the pyramids, every 11 years from here, from Montreal, Mount Royal, where I want to be laid rest, in the back of Belvedere, here on the mountain, Mount Royal, right to the back of the Belvedere, and then ascend 11 from the back of the Montreal Belvedere, ascend every 11 years into the city of the pyramids. Send me to the city of the pyramids, and from the city of the pyramids, send me, of course, to the Papa Crowley in New Jersey, Hampton. So that is, of course, the generational aspects where we have, of course, now to finalize, of course, on the Asperger situation. So, of course, just, of course, to be in the dynamic aspects where we are now, of course, that we are considerably on the amount of these dynamical forces where we appellate, and of course where we integrate, of course, all our civilizational forces for the coming and incoming of in our democratic imperial republic. So now what I will discuss, and we're going to finalize it on Asperger's, and we're going to switch to geopolitics. As we're going to switch, of course, to geopolitics, we're going to, of course, be switching that in a bit. So now is, of course, the relation where we are now. So, of course, the dynamic where we are now is, of course, that dynamical appellation, of course, of being now. And you're a divergent who has a special interest geopolitics. And just to wrap it up, yeah, we have 4 main problems, as we say, myself including: lack of friends. That's why it's friends with benefits only. Don't waste my time, I won't waste yours. High unemployment rates, high suicidal rates, and also high dropout rates, you know. Dropout rates, of course, from high school. A lot of Aspies, like 7, 8, 9 times more Aspies drop out from high school. And of course, 9 times also from university. I have a high school diploma. I graduated high school, you know. I graduated high school, you know. I graduated high school, you know. I did graduate high school, but I dropped out of college. I don't remember going to college, but I have some documents. Supposedly I dropped out, but supposedly I wanted to go to Kingston Military College, and I never did. And that is, of course, where we are now, you know, in all the aspects where we are to push it a bit, because it was a bit on the hill, a bit steep here on the mountain, and we pushed it in, we came, and we got on the left, right, Z, and we got, of course, all the dimensions where we are now. To switch from Asperger's and others to geopolitics. Geopolitics, leave the baggage at the door. I have predicted what's happening now back in 2019. In 2019, I have predicted that there's going to be an international conflagration. That's what I predicted back in 2019. I predicted that there's going to be a war, World War III, an international conflagration based on several layers of parameters. Several layers of parameters that I predicted, of course, that is gonna be a World War III type of scenario. And of course, in that World War III type of scenario, that was, of course, what's happening now, of course, across the world. However, I gotta state that what I did not predict is, of course, that there's going to be a deterioration of relations with the United States, as we have seen now, that, of course, the deterioration of relations with the United States has, of course, occurred, as, of course, I had predicted it back, of course, in 2019. In 2019, of course, in October, what we have, of course, and that prediction is in 2019, I have predicted that there is going to be such a, of course, a conflict in the world. What I did not predict was that, of course, there was going to be the conflict, of course, that there's going to be such, of course, a conflict with the United States. Of course, that conflict with the United States is, of course, something which I did not have predicted, of course. So, of course, that is, of course, the prediction which, of course, I have predicted now back, of course, in 2019. So, of course, that is something which, of course, has to be the beautiful, eh? Look at this. Beautiful. That is just beautiful here. I love coming here and look at these. Beautiful, eh? She's breaking it down. She's no. You'll let him down to you. No. He wants to. Here we are on the tops. On the tops. I love that. Isn't that just beautiful there? Beautiful there. That's all we got. So to the south is the United States border, and that's my favorite pyramid. Look at that. That's really a nice pyramid, eh? We got pyramids. Pretty cool how they build it, eh? That was always us, eh? Unnecessary. Escravos viejos. It was always you and me and my brother. And we led Dein Deutschen. It was always us. It was always us who led. Tired. They're tired. Look at these beautiful flowers. I've known that. I think they got the message. Beautiful flowers we have here. And these ones are the greatest. I know. No, they're not telling us. Sula. Then peace. So geopolitics now. I'm gonna formulate, discuss geopolitics, leave the baggage at the door. Super important to focus on what I'm gonna say next in terms of strictly a geopolitical discussion for the coming more than 44 minutes or so. Back in 2019, I have predicted an international conflagration. October, to be specific, October 17, I posted the first video, and consequently I created a workout training program system to go hand in hand with such an event. With such an event as an international conflagration. I'm going to repeat again, so I have proof for what I say now. Back in October 17 of October specifically, 2019, I had predicted that there will be in the coming years a great war. Great war, great war, great war. An international conflagration, a World War III on the horizon, due mainly to the fact, or one of the important aspects was that many conflicts which were from the 20th century had not finalized in the 21st century, specifically from the Second World War. From the Second World War. They had not finalized, they had not found a conclusion from the 20th century up till now, right? And of course, that was the reality. From the 20th century, and that has been transpired to be a reality which has unfolded in the 21st century. It was more academic, intellectual, philosophical in nature, but generally I had predicted that due to these unresolved conflicts, mainly from the 20th century, the Cold War period lasted between March 1947 and 1991, end of December. So I say almost 45 years. Almost 45, I place the Cold War duration from 1947 March to end of December 1991. I place it for 44 years and 9 months. Some say 45, some say it started in 1946 instead of 1947, some even say 1945. I place the Cold War between February 1947 and end of December 1991. So I don't mind saying more than 45 or even 46. I really don't mind. But generally that's what I play. So I'm not set in stone on that. So of course, being not set in stone, I can make a compromise of 45, 46 years. However, the point is that these conflicts from the Cold War period, 20th century, have reignited. If you look at Russia, Ukraine is a conflict from the Cold War. Israel, Hamas is a conflict which has its roots in the 80s. Hamas is an organization which was founded in the 1980s. They only took power in 2007 with the Gaza civil war, the faction. June, July, they fought and they had that power, and they of course had the civil war, and they took power like June, July 2007. So it took them 20 years to attain military political power over Gaza, because they were founded in the 80s, Hamas, right? But they didn't take power until about 20 years later at Gaza. And keep in mind that before October 7th, 2023, for the surprise attack, which Israel deemed its 9/11 attacks, I was advocating for Israel and Mexico to simultaneously join NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization member countries, simultaneously before 2023 October 7th. Because technically a country at war cannot really join NATO, because NATO is a defense collective alliance, right? So, but before October 7th, I have what I call, can check the videos from before that. It was called Genesis, NATO Genesis 33 protocol. So I was arguing, not arguing because I don't really argue much. I don't argue much. I was discussing my theories of Israel and Mexico joining the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, Collective Defense, NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which is a collective defense organization which has been established in 1949, April, and it celebrated last year 75 years. And last year, 2024, Sweden joined as the 32nd. So before October 7, 2023, the attacks, I was advocating, calling for Israel and Mexico to simultaneously, respectively, join as the 32nd and Israel as the 33rd, what I call Genesis 32-33, based on the biblical stories of the twins, Jacob and Esau, which is not going to go into the semi-mystical, philosophical aspects of that, but that's what I was calling for. And you know, when I come here, this is antennas, and see that 5G, I think it's 4G or 5G telecommunication structure here for antennas, radio and television. And in the parallel life, in 2029, it is the year of darkness, 2029, November 28th, I build, design, create satellites, supercomputers, microchips, telecommunication gadgets, smartphones, all things of coding, all things of science, technology, I build, create. And I also had a rough life as an N.A.C.W.P, but starting in that timeline, because now is the year of darkness, 2029, when I connect with my parallel self, he gives me headaches from its science, technological know-how, information, knowledge, and wisdom, and all things satellites, supercomputers, microchips, and science, and computer networks, and I give him headaches with my rock and roll. So I guess we give each other headaches, and we continue our journey in that year of darkness, 2029. It's November 28th. I build, design antennas, satellites, supercomputers, dishes, and worked for a few years to build a constellation of supercomputer integrated constellation satellites for NATO, a mass public-private partnership for total security, service, and defense that I have advocated now for the past years for my initiatives to be implemented in this 2025. So gonna go back to politics. So again, I predicted what's happening now generally, in a general manner. I did not predict all the events as they're unfolding in a detailed manner, but generally I did predict what's unfolding now, again in a general manner. I predicted it, not in a detailed manner. So that's why I have been and I will continue to advocate for my philosophies, initiatives to be implemented. Again, if you want to dispute the duration of the Cold War, you can say 45, 46 years. Again, I don't mind. Okay? But usually I place the Cold War between February 1947 and the Perestroika, which occurred December 26, 1991. So, to discuss NATO a bit, the alliance is of course a military collective defense alliance, and it was created, of course, post the Second World War, 4 years after, right? About 4 years after. It's 75 years. And counterbalancing it was the Warsaw Pact. During the Cold War, they had the Warsaw, what was called Poland, the capital of Poland, Warsaw. There was the Warsaw Pact, which was a military defense, collective security defense alliance between the Soviet Union and countries which were communist socialist, such as Poland, right? It was communist socialist Poland, Romania, Hungary, Bulgaria, and others, right? But those now are part of NATO. I'm not going to discuss NATO expansion, although you know that one of the Putin's resentments and disagreements was key disagreements and key that since the 90s, since the early 2000s, that NATO's expansion was a problem. And of course, I believe before Sweden, the latest ones were, of course, Turkey is another matter. Turkey is part of NATO, but I won't discuss the Turkey. Because some argue that Turkey shouldn't be in NATO. Well, it is, but some say it shouldn't be because it's whatever. Now, I'm not going to go into that. NATO's now Turkey. The Turkish Republic is part of NATO, so that is just the reality. So I'm not going to go much into the whatever Turkey should be, shouldn't be, and all that relation where we should not be and it should be, and or whether they should be or not in NATO. Well, they are. they are today, and they have been. The last one who joined was Sweden, and before that, of course, there was the expansion with Turkey, and there was the expansion in the East Yugoslav, right? They're trying to get membership. The Yugoslavia, which split into Serbia, Croatia, Montenegro, Albania, and Albania was actually independent, but it was not part of Yugoslavia. But Yugoslavia split into 6, right? Croatia, Serbia, Montenegro, Bosnia Herzegovina, and Kosovo. You know, I'm not going to go into the Yugoslav wars, but the NATO alliance only invoked Article 5, which is when one NATO member country is attacked, NATO must respond as a collective force, right? As a collective force. That's what is the purpose of NATO, right? But of course, it has only been invoked and applied once in its 75-year history. September 11th, right? And Israel calls October 7th as their September 11th. Israel says October 7th was their September 11th, right? That's why they have responded, and what a response, right? What a hell of a response. I'm not going to discuss the Israeli-Hamas war, Palestine, Gaza war for now, because it's basically on my protocols to be implemented for NATO member countries, and specifically for what I call the North American Collective and the coming Imperial Democratic Republic of the 63. As my brothers and sisters, fellow Canadians, the king is absent. The king is absent, the king is absent, the king is absent. It's time for the Republic, it's time for the Republic, and of course that is, of course, the time for the Republic now to be, of course, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, as we have, of course, all the implementation of the domain where we are now. I gotta watch my steps because I'm going down on the hill and it's in the darkness. As you can see some light there in the darkness, but of course I'm going down on the hill to be on that go. So that is something which we have, of course, to be and interject in all the domains where we got now. Plurality, of course, of the verses that we gotta be, of course, on that meditation with nature here in harmony, which I love, my mistress on the mountain, my second home. But I gotta be bending my knees as well because it's slippery. So now I'm going down steep. So I'm just gonna focus before I get, of course, on that. I'm just gonna get it on that steep and get on that steep, you know. So just bend my knees, make sure I reach safely. So just gonna go, and then we're gonna continue the discussion after I hydrate a bit more in that corner because I need a little bit more hydration. So that is, of course, something which we got, of course, to be now in the plurality, of course, of the appellation, and that is just something which we have, of course, the domain now to be named, of course. So all, of course, the situational awareness which we got now to be in the prudence where we got is, of course, something which we salute that I get it on that safe, you know. So that is something which I gotta get it, you know. So that is something which we have, of course, to be. So of course that is something which you gotta get into the light, you know, get into the light, and of course all that gotta get it like this, and that's why we gotta get doing on that drill, you know. So that is, here we are in the light, in the lightness. From the darkness. I recommend you people most stay there because there's no lights there, eh? So you better get on that, you know. So we're gonna get a little bit of that rock and roll for that, and we're gonna get it on that left, and so we're gonna get a hydration here, eh? But you can go in theory, see? I don't recommend it, but nonetheless, if you wanna go in the darkness in the forest, but you gotta know the way. You gotta know the way, you know. You gotta know the way. case. But all of everything else. I'm different. It's not pretend. It's feeling right. I'm different. It's just the day on it, They don't understand. It's not the fall. It's not the fall. It's the rise, you know. So now that we're gonna preposition ourselves to discuss geopolitics, we're gonna fully and depthly discuss my prediction of 2019. You know, so 2019, of course, always predicted, of course, was the inter relations that we have. That, of course, the truth in the dimensional that I predicted, the World War III, the international conflagration, parallel, of course, to the international conflagration that I predicted, was, of course, vis-a-vis it. I did not predict what's happening now with the deterioration of relations between us and the United States. So just wanted to clarify that. This is new for me, and this is alarming. And this is alarming. I get goosebumps every time I discuss it. You know that since August 1st, we are designated as an unusual and extraordinary threat to the American people, Canada, by, of course, the Trump administration. That was the justification of increasing tariffs, and Trump's administration launched trade war with the world, basically with the world. I'm not going to discuss the effectiveness of the trade war, the policies in depth. That requires hours and hours and hours to dissect it. I'm just going to say that in theory, globalization and international trade for nation states interplay, it's more also abstract and it's philosophical. It's not a requirement, an imposition on the country, the nation state, independent nation states, as we have the nation states post-Westminster, you know, because we had the kingdoms and empires and the governance levels of how they evolved into the 21st century, the democracy's republic, the republic, democratic republic, in a way, well, that can be misunderstood as socialism, communism as well, the democratic republic of North Korea, right? It's a one-party dynastic state, but it doesn't have elections in that sense. So, but I'm not going to go into that dynamic, but you understand that that's this is necessarily the meaning of from our philosophical North American centric mind or Western mind. And you know, my philosophy is that North America, we're constituting a North American civilizational complex, and of course the North American civilizational complex, which you are in the dynamics, of course, of being, of course, something which is abstract, that we constitute a philosophical, not just a theory, but my belief and knowledge to that it is so. Now we North Americans constitute a civilizational complex, which is not totally divorced, but is distinct from Western civilization. That is my own philosophy. We're distinct but not divorced from Western civilization. There you got that lake. That's a lake. I guess we can pass by. So we're not, divorced, but we're distinct from Western civilization. Of course, all that appellation to be, that we have in the traditions, of course, of the domain where we are, of course, to be involved with now, of course, these civilizational realities as we are to live ourselves now as united Canada, United States in the coming future. So that is a philosophical theory, right? It's not necessarily that it is a theory. It is rather more as a philosophy than a theory. The North American civilizational complex. So that is, of course, fully to be understood in the domains that it is discussed. So this discussion, of course, has to be a several multi-layer, but it's not for now to be in depth, but just to keep in mind that that is the proposition or the finality, that it is not divorced, but we are distinct. Distinct but not divorced, double D's. Distinct but not divorced here, North Americans, from Western civilization. We have our own, that we are a new emergent civilizational complex. While, of course, Europe, they have their civilizations which date to 3,000 years, or the Romans and the Greco-Roman civilization back to the ancient Egyptian, right? I guess you can play it Judeo-Christian if you want, but that is, again, what is the Judeo-Christian? Because if you read in Genesis chapter 50, Israel, the mystery, Jacob became Israel. Israel was embalmed in ancient Egypt. So it really is, our Judeo-Christian civilization it really is rooted in, as it is in ancient Egyptian, ancient Babylonian. One might not say, but it is also part of the Middle East of today, right? In many ways, Western civilization encompasses part of where our brothers and sisters, Arabs, have adopted and became, Muslims, and as all the Christians and the Muslims and Jews in the Middle East and other religions as well, other sects of religious beliefs and sects which exist, and secret mystic sects of branches of Christianity, of Judaism, of Islam, and all that. I'm not going to discuss it for now, but that is just the remarks to be integrated in the discussion. So of course, that is of course just the civilizational complex where we are now, to be suffused in all the relation where we have now, to be of course that we have of course the realities of this 2025 realities now in end of September, as I go towards the moon. That is of course the civilizational complex where we are to be now suffused in all the domains where we are now to be prudent for the future, that you have to say yes to this following statement, which I'm going to say now. And of course everybody, you cannot argue with it. It is of course the DMAA, the direct military assistance and action, which is of course confluential and super important of course for us, for NATO. And now, before I go into the DMAA, I'm going to discuss of course the direct military assistance and action, and of course the other consequences of the DMAA, the consequences of the DMAA involved, and also the problem which we have now, of course, that we are designated as an unusual and extraordinary threat, to the United States. That's how we're designated since August 1st. It's gonna be of course 2 months in October, 2 months, because of what's written there. Because of course of what's written there is of course the written propositions, the written directives on the black and White House was of course the motive for increasing tariffs was that we lacked cooperation. Coordination. Now when you coordinate, it implies action. For coordination implies action and necessary cooperation. When you cooperate, you can exchange information, knowledge. You don't necessarily coordinate, right? So these two words have the distinction thereof. But the word is coordination between our law enforcement, the RCMP, which is the equivalent of the FBI and DEA, drug enforcement agencies, of course, others, or lack of cooperation between our respective police forces. And my way, TUS protocols, the new 911 Dragon Total Integrated Citizen Integration Theory to fuse the RCMP and the FBI best for the great North American collective and NATO member-centric census, and for the given amnesty and the creation of the new Imperial ID, has to be better prosecuting the contempt criminologies of where we are. So of course now, where we are, of course, in all the prepositions where we are now, to be involved with it all is all these dynamics, which of course you have to say yes. When I'm gonna say now, you have to say yes, and we're in deep trouble because of that, because the imposition of tariffs has cost us severely. And even last week, the PBO, Parliamentary Budget Officer, has warned that our deficit is increasing by more than about 17 billion this year. That's a big increase, a big percentage. And as one, that our economy is going worse, and the debt we pay, the debt servicing on the public debt is unsustainable, and that in a few years we might as well be done I warned this. If you check my videos, I've been warning for this since about 3.5 years ago, because I saw the trends that during COVID we had to implement certain protocols, and I saw that our economy was not parallel keeping up with those programs which we had to implement, and now we have the added trade war. So this is a double-edged sword that has been double sword, which has been pressed on our economy, my fellow Canadians. So now what I'm gonna say, you have to accord with a yes. Yes, yes. You have to accord with a yes, 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 you know. Yes, you have to accord with a yes. There's no no. There's no maybe. You have to say yes to this following reality. You have to say yes. So you cannot say no to this. You cannot say no. You have to affirm in the positive. You have to affirm in the positive. So that positive affirmation can go, of course, with the affirmation of the positive aspects of the cooperative, integral aspects of the being thereof, suffused with the relations where we affirm in the positive that what I say now, you cannot say no, no, no. You can only say yes, yes, yes. So you cannot negotiate with it. You cannot negotiate. You have to say yes. You have to say yes. So our main economic, social. We depend on the United States by 75% of our exports. That's just the reality. And this following statement, which I'm going to say yes, whether you're on the left, in the right, or in the middle, you have to accord and say with a yes, 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 yes. It cannot be negotiated with. The main interest for us Canadians, and my brothers and sisters in the 50 states vis-a-vis us, for us, we have to have the best, to attain to have the best, most cordial economic, social, financial relations with each other. Right? You cannot say no. You cannot say no. You have to accord it with a yes. That is just a constant, right? That is just a constant. That is just a constant. You cannot say no to that. It's a constant, just like the pi symbol. The pi symbol, which is the relationship between the circumference, the diameter and the circumference of a circle. It's always 3.1413. But 3.1416, it goes up to infinitum, right? Is the relationship is the pi symbol, which is not an edible pi, is the N, letter N. For Normandy, natural, neurotypical, neurodivergent is N, you know, it's like two faces, two heads. Is the letter N for Normandy, natural, neurotypical, neurodivergent, or neutral, neurodivergent, neurotypical, Normandy, you know. It has two heads. That's why the coming of our empire will be two-headed, two-faced. There's one benevolent, one to punish, one for goodness and kindness, the other one for punish and judgment, and justice, justice, justice. And that's how we're gonna drill it with that. So of course, our main interest is to have the best as Canadians, and reciprocally. This is reciprocal with the United States vis-a-vis us. Is to have to establish the best, most cordial economic, social, financial, security, political, diplomatic, social, cultural, sports relations with the United States. That is just a constant. You cannot negate that. You cannot say no to that. You have to say yes to that. You have to say yes to that. You cannot negotiate. That's a constant. It's a constant, just like the pi symbol, which is a constant representation of the numerical value of 3.1416 between the circumference and the diameter. So with us, it is to have the best when it comes to foreign affairs, not domestic affairs. And because even the United States, my brothers and sisters in the 50 states, you have borders with Mexico. But of course, having borders with Mexico, it's also with us that you have to establish to have the best, most cordial economic, social, financial relations. And then, as a hierarchical, when we're discussing a hierarchical positions, in number one place, so the hierarchy, the hierarchy has to be establishing that the best, most cordial relations with the United States. That's just for us to accord it. And of course, it is so. You cannot negotiate with that. That is just the principle, right? So the principle is that we must have the best economic relations with the United States. That is just what it is. You cannot negate, you cannot say no, you cannot say maybe. That is just the realities, right? The realities. You can say because of this and because of that, but fundamentally that's what it is, right? That's fundamentally what it is. So because of course you have to establish the best, most cordial economic relations with the United States, and that is a constant, that doesn't change, right? So it has been thus for years and decades and decades and decades. It will be so for many decades. It has been at least since the dissolution of the Soviet Empire. And of course the British Empire. So of course it has been so for many years, many years, you know. So that is just how we be with that. That's just how you want to be playing with that. That is something which you have to be doing, you know. So that is just the concordant appellation of the plurality of the situational complex cities, where we have to reduce it to that standard and that principle. See, for the 63, vice versa with each other, because the geographical realities, yes. We have two oceans. That's unique for us. Other countries don't have this geographical realities. They have several borders with several nations, several states. But Canada, two oceans, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. Atlantic and the Pacific. So not just the historical realities, but the geographical realities of the implication of the geographical realities of Canada make it such. So you can't say no, you can't say maybe. It is yes. We must work to establish, to have the best, most cordial economic, social, financial, military relations with the United States. Big brother, little sister, little brother, like a family. You know? So that is just where, that's just the reality, geopolitically. Right? So establishing that as a principle, then we must accord all our external, because this is the hierarchical principle for foreign affairs. So this is the hierarchical principle when it comes to foreign external affairs. We must aim, strategize, establish, and all our number one priority when it comes to prioritizing in a hierarchical manner with which country to have the best, most cordial economic, social, financial, defense relation. For us Canadians is the United States, and for the United States is with us. And yes, we have no right, we're also part of NATO, but reciprocally, the bilateral relation has to be Canada, United States. With us, I guess we're 44 million now, more, because there's been an increase in immigration during COVID in the past 5 years, and more than before. It has been a bit on the controversial side. I always say, well, you know, you gotta have a statistical analysis and then a referendum, you know, whether we increase it or keep it steady. I always said that an annual vote, because, you know, the king is absent. It's time for the republic. We should have been a republic in the turn of the millennium. You know, 1st of January in 2025, in 2025, we're still, our Prime Minister Connie still pledged allegiance to the King of England and his heirs. You remember that? Even Trudeau, pledged allegiance to the King of England and his heirs. Our Prime Minister pledged allegiance to the King of England and his heirs. Let that sink in. Canada should have been a republic January 1st, 2000, at the turn of the millennium. The last day official should any regards whatsoever to the monarchy and the King of England and his heirs should have ended right when the turn of the millennium took place, 31st of December 1999. Brothers and sisters, absent is the butchers, the bakers, the truckers, the nurses, the doctors, the firefighters, the plumbers, the electricians, all those involved in the production, distribution of food, and all those, of course, making those construction workers, daycare workers, changing diapers coast to coast, those scientists, the teachers, the butchers, you know, Hydro-Quebec workers on the ground, those who built in the past, public workers who changed the aqueducts, and of course, those, of course, who changed the aqueducts is, of course, something which we have to apply, of course, in the simulacrum of now living in this world. Myself, my only stress is financial. So thus we're going to discuss, of course, the other situation, which is parallel to where we are now on the verge of a World War III, and to the fact that I predicted this, but I did not predict that there was going to be a deterioration of relations with the United States. So I get goosebumps when I go back to the fact that since this year, August 1st, we're designated as an unusual and extraordinary threat to the American people, given there is the motive that's fentanyl crossings have tripled since last year, and of course the reality of drug super lab reality is another reality given thereof. And you know, just last year, to make a meditation, conclusive geopolitical analysis, taking care of the United States facts, and last year, 25th of October, the RCMP, which is the equivalent to our FBI, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, Federal Police, dismantled, caught, seized the biggest ever drug super lab in the history of Canada, just last year. And that is mentioned in the black and white in the White House, of course, .gov, of course, declaration, that there's been a drug production, of course, there's drug super labs in Canada. That's the RCMP dismantled it last year, the biggest ever drug super lab. The biggest ever drug super lab. So, of course, the dismantling of the biggest ever drug super lab has been, of course, the reality on the ground. So, of course, the reality on the ground is that. So, of course, that is, of course, the reality on the ground. That is, of course, the reality on the ground. That is, of course, the reality on the ground, that the RCMP dismantled the biggest ever drug super lab, which could have potentially killed 95 million Canadians, twice the population of Canada, twice over, twice. Imagine, calculate that, twice over, twice, man, twice. Just one drug super lab. What if this transnational criminal organization was running 5? One was downed last year, 25th of October last year. It's going to be a month in 26 days. But what if they had 5 across Canada and one's down in BC? They have 4 more. That's 4 to go. What if one is in Quebec, one is in Ontario, one is in Manitoba, one is in Nova Scotia, right? It's a possibility. And the RCMP warned us since about 2015 of a growing transnational criminal syndicate organized groups. Which the growing transnational criminal syndicate organized groups, which were, of course, look at these beauties. I love seeing. which were of course instrumental in harming Canada. Since 2015, the RCMP sounded the alarm, and even since during COVID in 2021, yeah, you can check the documents. They've been warning us, the RCMP, the Mounties, been warning, and look where it got us now. We are designated by the United States as an unusual and extraordinary threat. You realize that our economy is going down. This is serious. This is very serious. It alarms me. Look, I get goosebumps. Not just because I was born in the United States 3 times post 1776 and I served in the United States Army, but if we are designated as an unusual and extraordinary threat to the American people, and given there the number of fentanyl which could have killed 16 million Americans, you realize that this transnational syndicate organized groups, and more and more I'm designating fentanyl as a bioweapon, because it doesn't make sense for the drug dealers. I guess they want their 44 cars and 4 mansions and whatever planes, but it doesn't make sense that people are dying such a large number overdosing, because you would want that clientele, that client person who's consuming the drug to keep on buying. And here in Canada, we legalized coast to coast that cannabis back in 2019, so something doesn't add up. And of course, now I'm going to get to the DMAA, Direct Military Assistance in Action. The Direct Military Assistance in Action, which is correlated to what I just said, stands for D, Direct Military, and military A, assistance or action, or it can be interchanged, action or assistance, and its potential consequences. It's not just a theory, it's a work tool, it's a protocol. It has to be deliberated, just like the motto of NATO is, animus incur liber. That means it has to be implemented as a working tool from now on. The DMAA, the Direct Military Assistance in Action, has of course to be, in conclusion, of course, has to be implemented and of course strategized to be a direct, of course, consequential appellation, where we have, of course, now of the Direct Military Assistance in Action, where we got to be, of course, at the conclusive side of course, of all the civilizational aspects where we live now. So, of course, the DMAA is nothing to do with, of course, is strictly military. It has nothing, of course, to do with assisting, of course, in a hygiene, with food, with anything that has to do with hygiene, with food, with anything that has to do with other things that are good for the, humanitarian assistance. So nothing to do with providing food, providing shelter, providing sanitation pads, providing, of course, disinfectant, providing baby powder, etc., etc., etc. It is strictly and only related to military affairs. And of course, the potential consequence which this entails vis-a-vis assistance of non-NATO member countries such as Ukraine. Ukraine was not part of NATO, and Canada provided helmets, drones, munitions, armaments, and of course armored vehicles. Thus, they can by harming the adversary army or opposite army, we create the consequences that they become antagonistic, and they might utilize secret police, secret covert police, or financing, hacking, sabotage, and even transnational criminal syndicate organized groups, such as the one that the RCMP dismantled on 25th of October. On the 25th of October 2024 last year, we were already 2 years, Canada, involved in supporting Ukraine with not just military assistance. We provided military assistance. So it has a consequence. So that's why it has to be deliberate from now on, to be put as not just a theory, but as a work tool, whether we're going to assist or not, because my theories are core for defense. My theoretical assistance, of course, is the total mobile defense theory, which, of course, I call all the leaders of the free world on the mountain, of course, to discuss and, of course, to appellate what we have now. And that is something which, of course, we have, of course, to do consequently now in the prudence what we got. So, of course, that is just, of course, the armaments, and, of course, see there, 44. This is one of the longest. I think it starts at 45 actually, but you see 44 there. So of course, all that is to say, of course, in the civilizational aspects where we are now today, that of course it is something which of course has to be now included, and prudently about it, for of course all the consequential appellations of where we have now. It is this domain where we got, and this domain where we are, of course, to be in the consequential furtherance, of course, of our issuance of a strategy and a consequential framework to work with the DMAA. Not just a theory, right? It's a work tool, protocol as well. Theoretical protocol for us to deliberate, just like the motto of NATO is, animus incur liber. means stands for Latin for a mind unfettered in deliberation. So is my DMAA to be unfettered in its deliberation, whether we take action or assistance from now on and in the future, because it has consequences. Some of those could be, and it is, the Russia-China solidification and their development of a strong economic, financial, military alliance, part with BRICS and the SCO, is partly due to NATO's DMAA. If not major, the majority, due to NATO's direct military assistance or action. Action could be like in Libya and other countries in the Middle East and Syria, also Yugoslavia, Belgrade, hey, when the Chinese embassy was bombed in 1999, other events. And more recently in Ukraine and the continuous assistance of Taiwan, which is an unresolved conflict from the 20th century between China and Taiwan. So now I'm going to finish on the DMAA. I'm going to come back to it in the coming days, weeks, and months ahead. But it has to be understood fully, so that is just where we are now. So that is, now we're going to jump to the DRT, debt refusion theory. So from the DMAA, direct military assistance and action, which in parentheses has a C, consequences, we're going to go to the DRT, the debt refusion theory, which we have to implement ASAP. PBO to the PBO, write this theory. This theory has to be implemented ASAP, because across Canada and the United States, my DRT, debt refusion theory, has to be implemented nationally, Canada and the United States jointly. And it's of course because both our citizens, Canada and the United States, are affected by these four main economic stresses and problems. One is the growing cost of living, the prices are increasing. The other one, second one, is and you can put them in different orders, of course, is of course the growing rents. Rents are increasing. Even my rent went up. I can't say by how much, because I'm going to say it's not that bad for me, between $6 and $10, between $6 and $10. So it is within the limits. I can't complain for my rent increase. I'm just going to not say exactly how much it is. I'm just going to say minimum between 6 and 10. Minimum 6, maximum 10. The growing cost of living, growing cost of rents, the stagnation of the salaries. That's why we got the strike here. Strikes in STM, even the transport. They're asking for 25%. They only want to give them half. 25% increase over 5 years. Over 5 years, though, eh? That's 25 divided by 5. It's not that much they're asking for. 5% annual increase. It's not that much. It's not that much. I concluded financially what I know that is feasible, but they're giving on the table half, 12.5%. Right. So that is one aspect, right? Stagnation of the salaries. Stagnation of the salaries. And of course, the other one, stagnation of the salaries, price of goods, bacon, cheese, milk, lettuce, eggs, prices of goods are increasing, stagnation of the salaries, cost of living, and fourth one, in whatever, growing credit card debts. Credit card debts is increasing, right? So those are the problems, main problems, right? Now, here's the solution, and it's part of the bipolar strategy for the total BDD, benevolent, dominant and dominion of the 21st century, by fusing Canada and the United States into the Imperial Democratic Republican complex. So the DRT can explain it. Keep in mind that the DRT also incorporates in it monetary integration theory, which is the financial theory which was integrated in the European Union, implemented in the 90s. The monetary integration theory, Germany, Italy, France, Belgium, they destroyed their national central banks. They no longer have a national central bank, in those countries of Europe. Many countries of Europe, not all, and they created a common central bank, and they issue a common currency known as the euro. The euro. There's a beautiful garden here. I just love it every time I pass. It's so refreshing and just gorgeous. Love it. I wish I could get my friend this house, or a house on the river with flowers like this. She deserves it. Anyways, the DRT is of course paradoxically also born of a book which I received. 1/3 of it is of course on the book, which of course I received back in 2018. Hey, this is cool. Children have some fun. Back in 2018, of course, when I said, of course, that there was on to, of course, the appellation where we have now in the communicative aspects of this DRT, which I'm going to be less philosophical, intellectual about it, but I'm going to try to be as much as I can to explain it simply. So we have no choice but to implement something similar, of course. Something similar, of course, something similar, of course, something similar, of course, which we have. Of course, so that's the DRT, stands for debt refusion theory. Of course, the debt refusion theory includes monetary integration theory. And of course, monetary integration theory is the financial theory, which was implemented in the European Union. So of course that is of course where we have now to apply and of course to integrate in all the conclusive manner where we are now, of course, to implement this theory, you know. So we have to, because we have these problems, so we're going to explain it. We're going to take all the public and the private debt, all the public and the private debt, we're going to take it, of course, coast to coast, and of course we're going to create this common currency. But first we're going to need, of course, to add it, all the public and the private debt, we're going to add it. Correction, so we're going to do, of course, all the public and the private debt, and of course we're going to do, of course, its implementation. So we're going to take all the public and the private debt, we're going to take all the public and the private debt, and we're going to add it all. We're going to add it all. So coast to coast, ocean to ocean, we're going to do the addition. The addition including my $10,000, of course, and yours. So of course that is the reality, you know. That is the reality. That's the reality. We're on the verge of a public financial collapse, you realize, eh? You realize that. So the DRT has to be implemented, right? We have to implement it. There's no other way. Well, something similar to my DRT theory is the way, right? Let's see what this says. The DRT, debt refusion theory, Draconis. You know. That is what we're going to do. We're going to implement it. So we're going to implement. We have to. It requires a mass public-private partnership. We're going to have to. We're going to have to. Because we're on the verge of a public financial collapse. You realize that it's not sustainable, you know? It's not sustainable. Like the PBO just warned last week, and we're on the verge of a public financial collapse. It could happen sooner. It could happen this year, 2025. The stock market could crash tomorrow in the private markets. So we're going to take all the public and the private debt. My $10,000, your $10,000, Canada, coast to coast, coast to coast, coast to coast. We're going to add all the public-private debt of Canada. We're going to add it all up. Add it all up. We're going to add it all up. And of course, we're going to do, of course, all of it up. And that's what we're going to do. And of course, we're going to have the addition. We're going to add it all up. So we're gonna take all the public and the private debt. All the public private debt. All of it, we're gonna take it all coast to coast. And we're gonna create, of course, all of it coast to coast, ocean to ocean. All the public and the private debt. Look at that. What? Thank you, public workers. This is nice. I love that. It smells good too. So we're gonna take all the public and the private debt. We're gonna convert it into US dollars. We're gonna do the conversion. We're gonna add it with the public private debt of the United States. We're gonna add it with the public private debt of the United States. We're gonna add it together. Add it. Because it has to be implemented by national. All that money is gonna be the initial money supply for a new central bank, right? For a new central bank. The Imperial Central Bank, we're going to issue the Imperial Dollar, aka, or the UE, U dot Universal, E dot Exchange, U dot UE, the UE, the UE, the UE, U dot Universal, E dot Exchange, U dot UE, the Universal Exchange Unit, U dot Universal, E dot Exchange, U dot UE, the Universal Exchange Unit. That's what we're going to do, of course. That's what we're going to do, the Universal Exchange Unit. U dot Universal, E dot Exchange, U dot UE. The Universal Exchange Unit, of course, is something which we're gonna do, of course. The Universal Exchange Unit, UE, U dot Universal, E dot Exchange, U dot UE. The UE, the UE, the UE, U dot Universal, E dot Exchange, U dot UE. The Universal Exchange Unit is gonna have the value of the US dollar, aka the Imperial Dollar. We're gonna create this new bank. With that money, we're gonna get rid of the border, make a great census. We're gonna do a great census. We're gonna do a great census. And this census, we're gonna try to give some amnesty. And of course, doing some amnesty is, of course, doing that amnesty. We're gonna do all that amnesty. And of course, doing that amnesty, we're gonna see who hasn't been convicted of 44 crimes in the past 11 years. We're gonna do, of course, the amnesty. And of course, that is, of course, what we're gonna do. We're gonna create the amnesty. We're gonna create this new imperial passport. We're gonna mass finance fitness, mass rebuild the infrastructure, the bridges. We're gonna mass rebuild the bridges, the infrastructure. We're gonna mass finance fitness. We're gonna, of course, build the 44 tunnels in case of a thermonuclear war, and be able, of course, to work on some protocols in case there's a thermonuclear war and Europe falls, to evacuate some millions, especially the youth from our NATO allies, to evacuate a certain from our NATO allies, right? Which we have a responsibility, legal binding treaty with. If there's a nuclear war there in Europe, and you never know, a war with Russia, and we have to maybe evacuate millions, eh? So we'll work on a plan to be able to take thousands of planes from NATO member countries and bring them here, and in case of a mass emergency. And here we're gonna get building that golden dome, that golden dome, you know. That's what we're gonna have to be doing, building that golden dome. Put a hawk in it, and mass finance fitness, mass finance building those 44 tunnels, mass rebuild the infrastructure, the bridges, get rid of the border, create a common passport, sign new imperial integrated constitution for the Democratic Republic of the 63, create the two complementary covenant and cooperative institutions, the international, the imperial security service and defense, Dragon Army for SSD only. It's gonna be only for SSD. I love this building here, it's quite nice. The SSD, security service and defense. And plateau, of course, we're gonna mass finance tourism every four days, every 4 seasons: spring, summer, autumn, winter. Citizen of the empire, Nova Civis, new citizens, Nova Civis, that's Latin for new citizens. We're gonna be, of course, credited. Expense of the empire, 4 days. When once you pass a second into that, past midnight, you lose a night. 4 nights basically, where food, lodging, and transport is gonna be covered. So you're gonna have 4 times 4 every year, 16. You can take the 4 every season: spring, winter, summer, autumn, or you can accumulate, take 8 days twice a year, or 16 days, or once you get to 44, it's use them or lose them, you know. So 3.5 years, you lose the momentum. This is going to establish a strong imperial esprit de corps as a mass public-private partnership. The billionaires, millionaires are, of course, called to do this great across the North American complex. And it is the imperial force which we're going to build together, Dragon Army, to assist with that. And the DGA Dancing Goddess Army with the environmental education and action. And the imperial integrated dance league, the Dancing Goddess Army, priestess of the goddess. That is just something which we're going to have to do, and complementary, of course, of all the domains where we are now. To do it, it requires this massive action together, joint action, of course, which we have to pledge your allegiance, and of course, to do, of course, all that, we're going to, of course, have to mass structure that, and that is basically the dream. The Dancing Goddess in the Dragon Kingdom. This is a fundamental dream, of course, for the North American constitutional republic, which we're going to finance, the empire, the Democratic Republic, and of course we're going to do this imperial protocols to finance and fuse the FBI and the RCMP and the FBI, of course, categorically. That's how we're going to do, of course, to be together, of course, in the implementation. Turn your heads left or right. You never know. Sometimes the brakes malfunction, turns, of course, on the other way, and of course gets on that implementation to be, of course, on the side of the things where we have to be prudent, of course. So that is just the situational awareness where we got now, So that is, of course, the consequential proposition of we are now to be. So that is the DRT, the debt refusion theory, where we have, of course, to do. The debt refusion theory where we have to do now, of course, in the consequential appellation of where we are now, So that is just, of course, the aspects, or rather the general proposition and the theory which has to be implemented. So the implementation of the theory has to be in consequences, of course, to all the civilizational aspects where we are now, of course, involved to build this new reality via the DRT, and consequently also the CIT, citizen integration theory, and the DRT, debt refusion theory, and the DFT, the democratic fusion theory, in parallel, of course, to be, of course, in the constituency where we are now fundamentally at this point in time. We're on the verge of public financial collapse, and of course financing to make and establish a great esprit de corps for our civilizational collective and our youth. We're 16 and over. Don't expect caviar for food, but you can get that fast food. I'm also going to take 4 for me. It's going to be applied. Adrian Hanna Dragon, androgynous pansexual founder of the coming Imperial Democratic Republic. Also, food. And also for me, from the highest to the lowest, 4 days, the Imperial Tourism and SSD, I'm going to formulate this new constituents and laws.